Chapter 845. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? We provide you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 848. The Elders Are Here. Surpass the Rules? Who is it? Who is it that has reached this point? Gasp, it's been 8,000 years. 8,000 years. No one has done it since that senior. Who did it now? Investigate. Investigate at once. Countless authorities that were in deep slumber in the Kanglan continent were awakened. For more information, visit www. These tycoons are not martial emperors, they are martial gods. On top of that, in the deepest part of the Kanglan continent, a white-haired old man suddenly wore an astounded expression. Someone has surpassed the rules of the heavens and earth? A moment later, the white-haired old man collected his thoughts and wore a grin as if he had realized something. He had almost forgotten about Qin Nan. It would be ridiculous if he failed to surpass the rules of the heavens and earth with his identity. Prepare to seal off the destiny. The heaven god has learned about it, we can't let him find the person. At that instant, an imperious roar could be heard. He was none other than the god ranking. Haha, sure. The white-haired old man burst out laughing. Didn't his big brother not believe what he said at the start? Why was he being so cautious now? However, his big brother was right, they had to seal off the destiny. Qin Nan was still too weak for now. They should give him more time. That being said, the shocking changes only took place among the authorities of the Kanglan continent. The martial monarchs and the experts carried on as usual, as if they were unaware of the changes. The entire Kanglan continent was still full of people who were willing to risk their lives just to alter their destinies. Meanwhile, inside the Tao Origin Chamber, $Mian, Huatang Xiao Sha, come, all of you. Qin Nan communicated with the mysterious golden seal and absorbed the Tao Origin Qi. The purple crystal inside the mountain buzzed, as the Tao source energy gushing out of it was as strong as 10 giant dragons. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Qin Nan continued to refine the martial seeds with the help of the Tao Origin Qi. The third seed, the fourth seed. After a day and a night had passed, the sixth martial seed was formed following a blast. They're all done. Qin Nan's face was filled with joy as he glanced at his dantian. Inside his dantian, 6 martial seeds floated in the air. Among them, the martial seed formed by the sacred force was the weakest, thus it was pushed to the side. The other 5 martial seeds had stronger auras. I'll need the force of the divine god of battle to refine the martial seeds. The force of the divine god of battle is quite unique. Thus I can't understand its pattern. I should focus on refining these 6 martial seeds for now. I'll refine them when I have the force of the divine god of battle. Qin Nan withdrew his smile and mumbled to himself. According to his idea, he could cultivate the martial Tao seed endlessly. However, it was impossible to surpass the rules without a certain foundation, and the force of the divine god of battle was the foundation. Let's improve the martial seeds first. Qin Nan glanced inside the mountain. The martial seeds were only the beginning of the martial ancestor. Only when they grew into a tree with a height of 1 zhang would they be considered the first layer of the martial ancestor realm. Normally, those who refined the martial seeds would have to overcome the tribulation and refine them with the tribulation. However, since Qin Nan had surpassed the rules, the tribulation had disappeared. He could only refine them by absorbing the Tao Origin Qi or other forces. However, with a glimpse, Qin Nan was given a great shock. The originally tall and majestic purple crystal had actually shrunk by a full 1/5 of its original size. It no longer had the enormous aura from before. It seems like the energy required to refine a new martial seed is out of my expectation. Qin Nan mumbled to himself before he focused on his cultivation. Meanwhile, at the cultivation peak of the Dragon Emperor Court. Did you hear? Something big is happening in the chamber of the source of the Tao. Yeah, it seems like more than 10 disciples have ranked up to the martial ancestor realm in less than 10 days. They are currently undergoing their tribulations in the godly dragon space. Gasp, I spent an entire month there last time. And it's a top-tier room. Come, let's go take a look. The news spread from 1 to 10, and from 10 to 100. Many disciples of the Dragon Emperor Court were aware of the strange happenings in the Chamber of the Tao, which led to a portion of the disciples of the Dragon Emperor Court making their way to the place. As a result, at least 50 disciples had gathered at the dojo at the top of the cultivation peak, resulting in a lively scene. As for the sky above the dojo, there were a total of 10 figures. The one leading them was none other than Ao Ling. On his left was Elder Hua, followed by the mentoring elder and the rest of the elders. What are you waiting for? Prepare to open the chamber of the Tao with brute force. Ao Ling glanced at Elder Hua coldly and snapped. Yes, yes. Elder Hua wiped the sweat off his forehead and took out a talisman, before inserting all the beastly force in his body into it. At that instant, the other elders immediately made their move. Their powerful beastly force was fired into the sky and dove downward. A shocking glow was emitted from the talisman. Bang! In the sky, the mysterious formation appeared once again with a flicker of light. At the center of the formation, a beam of white light was fired into the sky, blasting open an illusionary glowing door. The formation has been opened. Quick, take a look at it. F***K, the elders are right there, and you're asking me to take a look? If you want to go by yourself. The disciples below the dojo stretched their necks or executed their eye techniques to take a closer look. Ao Ling, Elder Hua, and the others did not stop. They quickly stepped into the door of light and arrived in the Tao Source's abode. Qin Nan, who was in the low-tier room, suddenly raised his head as he discovered something. A purple glow flickered. The elders are here? They must have been alerted by the incident at the Chamber of the Tao Origin. I shouldn't absorb them for now. Qin Nan immediately came to a realization after seeing the formation. He withdrew the 6 martial seeds and stopped cultivating. Purple golden dragon eyes. Ao Ling, who was in the air, let out a low roar. 2 immemorial dragon shadows seemed to appear in his eyes. Masha demon eyes. Elder Hua and the rest of the elders executed their monarch arts or eye techniques and glanced at the mountain below. However, following a glimpse, Ao Ling, Elder Hua, and the rest of the elders were dumbfounded. Are you kidding me? A full 1/5 of the purple crystal had been absorbed. It should be noted that all the major abodes were opened by special formations. Even if hundreds of people were cultivating at the same time, it would be impossible for them to consume 1/10 of the purple crystals in just a dozen days. Something must have gone wrong, and it was a huge problem. Chapter 846. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 849, The Arrival of the Monarch Beast. The disciples, who were cultivating in the middle grade and low grade abodes, walked out in confusion when they saw the 10 elders who were waiting for them in the sky. Access to the full article. As for Qin Nan, he glanced at Elder Hua in the air before withdrawing his gaze, as if nothing had happened. Today, a major event happened. There's a total of. Elder Hua looked around at the crowd and began to narrate the sequence of events that had happened. The disciples in the cultivation field who had heard the news were also shocked when they heard this. No wonder the 10 elders were alarmed. 1/5 of the Tao Source crystal had been absorbed. I'll ask you one more time, are you the culprit behind the Tao Origin crystal? Xian Yu, are you the culprit? Elder Hua skipped Qin Nan and fixed his gaze onto Xian Yu. In addition to him, the other elders reacted the same way too. The reason being that Xian Yu was the young master of the Skyhowl Wolves tribe, who possessed a 4th grade Tian-ranked martial spirit. If this had been done by someone, then Xian Yue was the most likely culprit. Me? How could it be me? Xian Yu was on the verge of tears. Fellow elders, his middle tier cave only has a single stream of Tao origin qi every time. His cultivation has yet to improve even the slightest. It's not him? Could it be that something is wrong with the Tao origin crystal? Elder Ao and the others frowned. Elders, I'm the culprit. At that instant, a loud yell could be heard all of a sudden. It was unusually loud. Almost at that instant, the attention of the elders and disciples was attracted by the figure. Their faces were filled with astonishment when they saw Qin Nan's figure. Qin Nan was the culprit? A human with a first-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit? Qin Nan, enough with your nonsense. Do you really think you can absorb a fifth of the Tao origin crystal's energy? I think you're. Elder Hua was already furious, thus he immediately unleashed his anger after seeing Qin Nan. Shut up! Elder Ao snapped before he glanced at Qin Nan with a sharp gaze. Qin Nan, did you really do it? I can swear to the heavens and earth that I'm the culprit. Qin Nan said calmly. He remained unmoved. Hearing this, the elders and the disciples on the dojo were dumbfounded. He dared to swear to the heavens and earth. Was he really the culprit? How did he do it? F***K This Qin Nan is too impressive. Who would have thought? The disciples on the dojo were the first to react. Their eyes were still filled with astonishment. Love Go Shao Sei Ku. As for the disciples of the Tao Origin Chamber, only Xian Yu was astounded when she came to a sudden realization. It turned out that Qin Nan was the culprit behind the lack of Tao Origin Qi in her cave. Qin Nan. At that instant, a furious roar could be heard, which turned out to be Elder Hua. His face was filled with rage as he uttered a thunderous roar. How bold of you to do such a thing in public, causing such a great loss to the Tao Origin Crystal. Today, I'm going to arrest you on behalf of the disciplinary hall. He was utterly infuriated. Since the Tao Origin Chamber was in trouble, it did not matter who was the culprit, as he would be punished for failing to supervise it properly, leaving a loophole for others to exploit. Is that so? Qin Nan remained calm. His hair danced wildly as he glanced at the elders and said in a cold tone, as an inner disciple of the Dragon Emperor Court, I'm only participating in the Tao Origin Chamber and absorbing the Tao Origin Qi on my own. Do you think I'm wrong too? This, Elder Ao and the rest of the elders were startled. The surrounding disciples were stunned too. However, on second thought, what had Qin Nan done wrong? The Tao Origin Chamber did not say that the disciples were not allowed to absorb more Tao Origin Qi. I don't care. Elder Hua was so infuriated that he was on the verge of exploding. He reached out his hand and grabbed at Qin Nan with a shocking might. His only thought now was to teach this idiot a lesson. How bold! However, at that instant an icy female voice could be heard coming from the sky. Whoosh! A graceful young woman directly crossed through the void and descended upon this place. It was as if the entire heavens and earth had lost its color upon her arrival, leaving her alone. It was as if a single glance at her would cause one to fall into her beauty. A monarch aura could be sensed from her figure. She was one of the 3 monarch beasts of the Dragon Emperor Court, whose true form was the 9-tailed skyfox. The 9-tailed monarch beast had arrived. Supreme Elder. Elder Hua's figure stiffened as he raised his head. His face was filled with astonishment, as he could not move his body anymore. Elder Ao and the rest of the elders, as well as the disciples present, were all shocked. One should know that under normal circumstances, the 3 great demonic emperors would not show themselves easily. However, the 9-tailed monarch beast had come in person just because of the Tao Origin Chamber. What was going on? One of the 3 monarch beasts? Qin Nan raised his head. His eyes flickered with astonishment. The reason why he had stepped forward and told the truth despite the risk was because he had other plans. However, he did not expect the 9-tailed monarch beast to lend him a hand. Elder Hua, you've got guts. Just because of a disagreement you started a fight. This Qin Nan was telling the truth. He didn't do anything wrong at all. Why would you attack him? The nine-tailed monarch beast stood high up in the sky and glanced downward. Her terrifying monarch aura filled the place. It was as if the entire cultivation peak had fallen silent. This was the power of a monarch beast. The arrival of a single person could suppress everything. Elder Hua's face began to turn pale, and cold sweat trickled down his forehead. This was a shifter emperor. Just this emperor's aura alone was enough to make him breathless, let alone speak. I'll deal with you later. The nine-tailed monarch beast harumphed. Her watery eyes suddenly flickered as she glanced at Qin Nan and asked curiously, Qin Nan, I'm very curious. How did you communicate with the Tao origin crystal? Can you tell me? I'm sorry. Qin Nan calmly brought his fists together as he was not affected by the monarch aura. Supreme Elder, this matter is related to my safety, thus I can't reveal it to you. Hearing this, the eyes of the surrounding elders and disciples were filled with astonishment. This Qin Nan was so bold to reject the nine-tailed monarch beast's offer. I see. The nine-tailed monarch beast blurted out as a thought crossed her mind. Don't call me Supreme Elder. You're making me sound old. I'm still a young woman. Kiki. The nine-tailed monarch beast giggled while covering her mouth. Her pleasant laughter echoed in the heavens and earth, before she said after a while, Sure, I promise you, if you can really move the Tao origin crystal back to the human peak, I'll let you continue to cultivate with it. If Qin Nan dared to say that, he must have some tricks up his sleeve. However, she would like to see how Qin Nan was going to move the Tao origin crystal since his cultivation was not as strong as the martial ancestors. Kid, I have another question. If I move it back, does that mean I can cultivate with it indefinitely? Qin Nan asked as a sudden thought crossed his mind. It would be a great loss if he could only cultivate with it for a day. Sure, it's yours once it's back. You can cultivate with it for as long as you want. The nine-tailed monarch beast said, Of course, if you can't move it back, you'll have to tell me how you're able to absorb the Tao origin chi from the Tao origin crystal. Sure. Qin Nan became excited. He withheld the excitement in his heart and sat down with his legs crossed. He directed his divine sense into the Tao origin crystal through the mysterious golden seal. However, at that instant, Elder Ao, Elder Hua, and the rest of the disciples were petrified upon seeing this. Seriously? Was he seriously going to move it? Was this Qin Nan confident, or was he out of his mind? Little Qin Nan, you only have half the period it takes an incense to burn. At that instant, the nine-tailed monarch beast said as a thought crossed her mind. She could not possibly wait here forever. Qin Nan did not respond. His divine sense was fully focused on the golden seal. Half the period it takes an incense to burn, what should I do with the remaining time? The nine-tailed monarch beast glanced at the crowd and said with squinted eyes as a sudden thought crossed her mind, Hey, wake up, it's the first time in the history of the Dragon Emperor Court that someone is trying to move the Tao origin crystal away. Why don't we place our bets on whether Qin Nan is able to move the Tao origin crystal away? I'll be the banker. The moment these words were spoken, all the elders and disciples regained their senses, and the corners of their mouths twitched incessantly. Although they had heard about the nine-tailed demon emperor's eccentric personality, they did not expect her to be thinking of making a bet at a time like this. I bet he won't be able to move it. Xian Yu was the first to yell. Oh, not bad, young man. You're pretty bold. I bet you'll have to bet at least 500 monarch crystals, right? The nine-tailed monarch beast descended from the sky and withdrew her monarch aura. I bet he won't be able to move it too. There's no way he can move it. I wonder what trump card he has, but this is too ridiculous. The atmosphere of the place changed after Xian Yu and the nine-tailed monarch beast's interference. However, at that instant a loud buzz could be heard coming out of nowhere, which echoed between the heavens and earth. It was extremely faint, thus the crowd failed to notice it. The nine-tailed monarch beast's expression froze as her eyes emitted a boundless glow as she glanced in the direction of the Tao origin crystal. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At that instant, the buzz grew louder, as if the space itself was being struck. The elders and disciples were astounded as they became aware of the rare phenomenon. Many of them dropped the monarch crystals that they had just taken out, resulting in a series of clanking noises. The lively dojo fell into a dead silence. Could this be Tao origin crystal? Give it to me. At that instant, Qin Nan's eyes suddenly sprang open as he uttered a roar. Following this, the elders and disciples of the Dragon Emperor court witnessed a sight that they would never forget for many years. Bang! A shocking explosion echoed across the entire cultivation peak. It turned out that a tremendous force from the Tao origin cave had shattered the giant mountain into pieces. A giant crystal sprang into the sky from among the flying rocks, leaving a trail of purple light behind it as it flew rapidly in Qin Nan's direction, resulting in a shocking sight. The Tao origin crystal, it had flown out on its own. P.S. Here's the 6th update. By the way, I'm recommending a book written by a good friend of mine. It's called The Supreme Deity of 10,000 Swords. Will it continue tomorrow? Chapter 848. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 851. Astounding the Dragon Emperor Court. The enormous Tao origin crystal flew to the top of the cultivation peak. The purple light emitted from the crystal caused the entire peak to be covered in a purple glow. It was as if everyone's bodies were covered in a layer of purple clothing. For more information, visit www.this. The nine-tailed monarch beast's eyes were filled with astonishment. She was left speechless for a moment. As for Elder Ao, Elder Hua, Xian Yu, and the others, their minds went blank. Their divine sense had yet to react. Haha, Sister Nine-Tailed Monarch Beast, I've done it. I'll bring it back to the human peak now. Qin Nan burst out laughing as his figure sprang into the sky. He reached out his hands and hoisted the Tao origin crystal onto his shoulders before flying toward the human peak at a rapid pace. This kid. The nine-tailed monarch beast collected her thoughts and was left speechless. Her eyes flickered with astonishment. As a monarch beast, she was able to see the mysterious golden seal inside the Tao origin crystal. In other words, Qin Nan already had a way to make the Tao origin crystal fly out on its own. As for what Qin Nan had said, it was all on purpose. Since a fifth of the Tao origin's paradise had been consumed, the Dragon Emperor Court would not allow Qin Nan to cultivate in it any longer. As such, Qin Nan had said something like, bringing out the Tao origin's paradise. It was simply too unbelievable. No one would believe it. The nine-tailed monarch beast agreed to Qin Nan's request because she thought it was too crazy. She wanted to witness Qin Nan's capabilities, which was why she had agreed to Qin Nan's request, thus forming a bet. She had fallen right into Qin Nan's trap. Then, Qin Nan would be able to move the source of Tao paradise back to the human peak and claim it as his own. After all, the nine-tailed shifter monarch was one of the 3 giants of the Dragon Emperor Court. Once a promise was made, it was impossible to take it back. This kid is really good at scheming. But I like it. The nine-tailed monarch beast wore a grin after realizing the plan. She stomped her foot and flew toward Qin Nan's back, resulting in a pleasant scent. Let's go and take a look. F***ck. He really moved away. F***ck, there's such a thing. The elders and disciples present regained their senses one after another. Their faces were filled with shock as they rose into the air and flew behind Qin Nan. Elder Ao, Elder Hua, and Xian Yu felt their hearts tremble. They no longer had any thoughts in their minds. They could only follow the crowd and proceed forward. It was as if they wanted to witness a grand miracle. Meanwhile, in the Dragon Emperor Court, there were a total of 8 mountains on the path from the Cultivation Peak to the Human Peak, which were respectively the Exchange Peak, the Trial Peak, the Quest Peak, the Martial Skill Peak, the Training Peak, etc. Each of the 8 mountains was occupied by many elders and disciples. However, at that instant, the disciples and elders on the 8 mountains subconsciously raised their heads as they sensed something. Following a glimpse, their faces were filled with astonishment as if they had been struck by lightning. Kami. What's that? Isn't that Qin Nan? Why is he carrying the Tao Origin Crystal? Monarch Beast. The 9-tailed Monarch Beast is behind him. Elder Ao, Elder Hua, and the others are behind him too. Kami, what's going on? The 8 mountains were instantly immersed in an uproar. The reason being that they saw Qin Nan carrying a giant purple crystal and flying into the sky with a formidable aura. Behind him were the 9-tailed Monarch Beast, Elder Ao, Elder Hua, and the others. How could they not lose their minds after witnessing such a scene? Meanwhile, the Dragon Emperor Court, the blue-glowing solitary serene peak. Hua Jian and Hua Dichen were enjoying tea and discussing the current situation in a residence. Basically, Hua Dichen was talking while Hua Jian was listening and nodding his head at times. It was one of Hua Dichen's habits. He was fond of sipping his tea and commenting on the situation with sharp words, as if he was looking at everything from the peak of the middle continent, like an emperor. Hua Jian did not understand, nor did he need to understand, as Hua Dichen only needed a follower to agree with him. Humph, Qin Nan, oh Qin Nan, I bet you're having a hard time in the Tao Origin Chamber, aren't you? The bored Hua Jian thought of Qin Nan and harumphed disdainfully. A mere Qin Nan dared to challenge him? He was asking for his life. Suddenly, Hua Dichen frowned. He picked up a badge and scanned it. Following a glimpse, even his eyes widened with great astonishment. Brother, what's going on? Hua Jian was startled seeing Hua Dichen's reaction. It had been a long time since he last saw Hua Dichen. He did not expect him to be so astonished because of something. However, when Hua Dichen uttered the words, Hua Jian felt like he was struck by lightning from the 9 heavens. What? How was this possible? In addition to Hua Dichen, the incident at the Cultivation Peak swept the entire Dragon Emperor Court like a storm. The ancient purple-golden Battle Dragon Peak, the 9-tailed Skyfox Peak, the Diabolic Qilin Peak, the Skyhowl Wolf Peak, the Crimson Dragon Peak, etc. Everyone from the elders to the servants were astounded. The entire Dragon Emperor Court, apart from the 10,000 Beast Garden, was in an uproar. Are you kidding me? Qin Nan has taken the Tao Origin Crystal. Even a martial monarch wouldn't be able to do that. Let's go. Let's go and take a look. Gasp! This human has caused such a huge commotion. Almost at the same time, countless elders, inner disciples, outer disciples, and servants made their moves. They turned into rays of light and flew toward the human peak rapidly, as if a grand occasion was taking place in the Dragon Emperor Court. Meanwhile, at the human peak. A while later, Qin Nan arrived above the human peak with the Tao Origin Crystal and a huge group of cultivators. Senior, get ready to receive the guests. Qin Nan uttered a roar that exploded above the human peak. The 6-spirited dragon vein immediately collected its thoughts and uttered a roar with an unfriendly look. You little prick, what are you doing? You dare to interrupt me when I'm at the crucial part of my cultivation. I'll teach you a lesson later. Even the good-tempered 6-spirited dragon vein was infuriated. However, halfway through his roar, when he saw the scene in the sky, his 6 pairs of dragon eyes shrunk to the size of needles. What the F***? What was going on? Wasn't that the Tao Origin Crystal? Why was Qin Nan carrying it here? And behind Qin Nan, why were the nine-tailed monarch beast and the elders here too? What were they up to? The heavens and earth are boundless. Tao Origin Crystal, listen to my command. From today onward, stay at the human peak. At that instant, a terrifying aura burst out from Qin Nan's body. He waved his hand and summoned countless runes that wrapped around the Tao Origin Crystal like giant snakes, dragging it downward toward the human peak. Bang! The Tao Origin Crystal landed firmly on the top of the human peak. At that instant, countless purple glows were emitted from the Tao Origin Crystal, which covered the entire human peak in a purple glow. Roar! As the spirit of the human peak, the six-spirited dragon vein was startled. It sprang into the sky and danced around the Tao Origin Crystal while uttering a deafening roar. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A series of vibrations could be heard. The Tao Origin Crystal and the human peak had merged into one. Their auras were indistinguishable. Chapter 849. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second? Here's a great novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 852. Delivering themselves to the door. At that instant, countless rays of light arrived at the human peak, causing more figures to appear behind the nine-tailed monarch beast, resulting in a magnificent scene. That was fast. The entire sky was filled with all kinds of voices. However, since the nine-tailed monarch beast did not move, the crowd remained still. Their attention was focused on the rare phenomenon taking place at the human peak. As for Qin Nan, his attention was fully focused on the human peak. He had already mentally prepared himself when he brought out the Tao Origin Crystal. Even if every disciple and elder of the Dragon Emperor Court were here, he would not budge. The reason being that it was extremely crucial this time. Once the Tao Origin Crystal was perfectly merged with the human peak would turn into a cultivation ground, which would determine whether Qin Nan's path to the martial progenitor realm would be smooth sailing. As such, Qin Nan had come up with a little plan. Everything was for the sake of becoming stronger. At that instant, the crowd could only see the vegetation, ground, rocks, rivers, etc. emitting a strong presence of qi. Many of the herbs and trees grew rapidly at a visible pace, resulting in towering trees. Countless purple auras began to drift out from the sky above the human peak. They were none other than the Tao Origin auras. Roar, roar, roar. As the mountain spirit of the human peak, the six-spirited dragon vein benefited the most. Its scales began to turn purple, glowing brightly under the sunlight. Its aura had ranked up to the 4th layer martial progenitor realm. On top of that, the Tao Origin Crystal experienced some magical changes too. Inside it, there was a hint of the six-spirited qi and the aura of the human peak. Buzz! At that instant, everyone could clearly sense it. The Tao Origin Crystal had completely merged with the human peak, thus there was no distinction between it and the human peak. It's done. Qin Nan's face was filled with joy. Now that this matter had been settled, there was no need to worry about his cultivation at all. This kid is planning to turn the human peak into a cultivation ground. It seems like he's planning for the long term. The nine-tailed monarch beast nodded her head slightly upon seeing this. She was not displeased at all, but she could vaguely see the glory of the human peak 1,000 years ago. It was as if the human peak was brimming with vitality again after 1,000 years. A holy land for cultivation. This is a true holy land for cultivation. Hiss! Qin Nan actually has such a plan. Crazy! Crazy! This is crazy! Between the heavens and the earth, countless gasps of astonishment resounded. None of the people present were stupid. They naturally knew what it meant for a Tao Origin Crystal to merge with the human peak. The Tao Origin Crystal was a precious artifact, which contained a tremendous amount of Tao Origin Qi. Over the past few thousand years, countless disciples of the Dragon Emperor Court had used it to rank up to the martial ancestor realm. As such, Elder Ao and the others had lost their composure after consuming 1/5 of the Tao origin crystal. What's with the noise? Can't you see I'm here? All of you shut up. At that instant, an unpleasant roar could be heard, which turned out to be the nine-tailed monarch beast. The monarch aura that she had withdrawn burst out from her body like a vast ocean, encapsulating the elders and disciples that were making their way to the scene. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions took place. It turned out that many people were knocked backward by the monarch aura with astounded expressions. The entire place fell into a dead silence. Who would dare to disobey the words of a monarch beast? Sister Nine-Tailed Monarch Beast, many people have seen the bet between us. I believe Sister Monarch Beast won't fall out with me because of this, right? Qin Nan immediately became alert and spoke first. Humph. The Nine-Tailed Monarch Beast raised her chin and said, "It's only a piece of the Tao origin crystal, I won't hold it against you. I'm a woman of my words. However, the matter of you scheming against me earlier, I'm going to settle the score with you." Saying this, her expression turned cold as she emitted an imperious aura. Elder Ao, Elder Hua, and the rest of the disciples at the cultivation peak already knew that Qin Nan was confident enough to set the nine-tailed monarch beast up by making a bet with the beast monarch. Qin Nan remained calm as he glanced at the elders and disciples behind the nine-tailed monarch beast and said with a thunderous voice, "Sister Monarch Beast, how am I setting you up? I told you that I could take the Tao origin crystal, but none of you believed me, so I had no choice but to show you. It's all because of my capabilities. Isn't the Dragon Emperor Court a place where one's capabilities and the rules speak for themselves?" Qin Nan's words were flawless. He had no foundation in the Dragon Emperor Court, with no one above him. If he wanted the resources, he would have to fight for it himself. Even if he had to resort to some tricks, it would not be a big deal. That being said, once Qin Nan's cultivation improved, he would not resort to any trick. He would talk with his fist. That's true. The nine-tailed monarch beast rolled her eyes and said, "Qin Nan, this Tao origin crystal is the precious treasure of the sect. If you keep it for yourself, it will affect the future development of the Dragon Emperor Court." The nine-tailed monarch beast wore a grin as she said, "Why don't you return the Tao origin crystal after a few months when you're done with your cultivation? That way you won't lose anything. You'll reap all the benefits. Everyone, don't you agree?" The nine-tailed monarch beast glanced at the elders and disciples behind her. They swiftly collected their thoughts and glanced at Qin Nan with a hint of jealousy. How could they accept the fact that Qin Nan had received the benefits for free? This was especially true for Elder Hua and Hua Jian, who had rushed over. When they heard this, their eyes lit up. They raised their arms and cheered loudly. Their expressions were excited, and they were the first to speak. "The Supreme Elder is right. Qin Nan, you should return the Tao origin crystal to the Dragon Emperor Court after cultivating for a month or two. That's right. Qin Nan, you're a disciple of the Dragon Emperor Court. You should consider the interests of the Dragon Emperor Court. 2 months is too long. Half a month should be enough for him." The voices that filled the sky were like a punitive expedition. Qin Nan wore a grin when he saw Elder Hua, Hua Jian, and the others standing at the front. He had long expected this to happen. The nine-tailed monarch beast's words came at the right time. Now that he had settled the problem with his cultivation, it was time to settle the old scores. Chapter 850. Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second/Small? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 853. The Tragedy of the Hua Clan. Sister Monarch Beast, fellow elders, fellow disciples, since you're all here, I hope you can listen to me for a moment. Once I'm done, I'll let Sister Monarch Beast and everyone else make the decision. Qin Nan's expression remained the same despite being yelled at. Instead, he uttered a thunderous roar. Access. One person's voice actually covered the entire area. Sure, tell us what you have to say. The nine-tailed monarch beast blinked her eyes. To her, it did not matter that Qin Nan had taken the Tao origin crystal. However, she was partly responsible for it, thus she still hoped that Qin Nan would be willing to compromise. Elder Hua, Hua Jian, and the others wanted to continue, but since the monarch beast had spoken, they had no choice but to obey. As for the rest of the elders and disciples, they were only feeling jealous after seeing Qin Nan receiving such a great benefit for no reason. The place fell silent. Everyone's gaze landed onto Qin Nan's figure. Sister Monarch Beast, Elder Ao, and the others know that I've used a little trick to place the Tao origin crystal at the human peak. However, do you all know that I've brought the Tao origin crystal here because of the injustice? Qin Nan's expression became stern all of a sudden as he snapped. When I entered the Tao Source's chamber, I've acquired the badge of a superior room. However, Elder Hua and Hua have been colluding with one another, demanding monarch crystals from me. I rejected them forcefully, thus Elder Hua has revoked my right to enter the superior room, and assigned me to the inferior room instead. As soon as he said that, Elder Hua and Elder Hua's expressions changed at the same time. Quick update, refreshing website with few advertisements. I love this kind of website the most, please leave a good review. The crowd glanced at the two too. Even the nine-tailed monarch beast squinted slightly. As a matter of fact, it was normal for the elders to abuse their authority to bully the disciples. However, it was different today, as the nine-tailed monarch beast was present. It went without saying that the monarch beast would not be bothered by it. The two of you, is this true? The nine-tailed monarch beast spoke in a soft tone, but the elders could sense the icy intent in her voice. Slandering us? Qin Nan, you're slandering us. Elder Hua was given a great fright, who blurted out, Supreme Elder, it's not what he said. I didn't do it. That's right. Supreme Elder. We didn't do it. Hua Jian's face turned pale too, who said he glared at Qin Nan. Qin Nan, since you're accusing us of colluding with you, why don't you show us the evidence? Evidence, huh? Qin Nan let out a hollow laugh. He was still trying to twist the truth when his death was at hand. He immediately glanced at Xian Yu and the rest of the disciples, as they could all testify for him. However, at that instant, I'll testify for Qin Nan. Elder Hua used his authority to demote Qin Nan's superior room to the inferior room, and even asked Qin Nan to piss off. A roar could be heard from a distance away, which turned out to be Bai Weiyang. His aura had reached the first-layer martial ancestor's realm, indicating that he had successfully overcome his tribulation. Bai Weiyang, you're colluding with Qin Nan to slander me. Elder Hua and Hua Jian's faces darkened. Why was this Bai Weiyang so stupid to help Qin Nan against them? There was no benefit to it. Qin Nan was also surprised. Bai Weiyang smiled and did not say anything. He only cupped his fists at Qin Nan. Since Qin Nan was in charge of the source of the Tao's paradise, it meant that he owed Qin Nan a favor, which saved him at least 20 days. I'll testify for senior brother Qin Nan. That's right, Elder Hua is suspicious. Supreme Elder, I can swear an oath to the heavens and earth. At that moment, one disciple after another approached from afar, each with the aura of the first-layer martial ancestor. Obviously, they were from the source of the Tao's paradise, and they had all received favors from Qin Nan. Elder Hua's and Hua Jian's faces turned pale in an instant. There was nothing they could say to defend themselves. Master, they're right. Hua Jian and Elder Hua have disregarded the rules of the Dragon Emperor clan by abusing the authority of the clan for their own benefit, which is a heinous crime. If I were Qin Nan, I wouldn't be able to stand it either. A calm voice could be heard. Mu Mu was wearing a white robe. Her hair danced in the wind as she approached the crowd with a sacred aura like an immortal descending upon the mundane world. Qin Nan was startled. It turned out that Mu Mu's master was the nine-tailed monarch beast. Yo, Xiao Mu has had a breakthrough? The nine-tailed monarch beast's eyes flickered as she glanced coldly at Elder Hua and Hua Jian. What do you two have to say for yourselves? Elder Hua's figure stiffened as if he had been struck by lightning. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The surrounding elders and disciples all looked at the two of them with pity in their eyes. Even if some of them had a good relationship with them, or were elders from the Cyan Light Unicorn bloodline, they wouldn't say anything. It was just bad luck for the Shifter Emperor to seek justice for the two of them. Supreme Elder, I have something to say. This has nothing to do with me. I didn't collude with Elder Hua to deal with Qin Nan. Hua Jian stepped forward in a panic. Hua Jian, enough with the nonsense. I've yet to settle the score with you for using me to deal with Qin Nan. Supreme Elder, even though Hua Jian is a genius on the monarch ranking, he's not a righteous person. You should teach him a lesson. A loud voice could be heard all of a sudden. It was the mentoring elder. He had always felt guilty toward Qin Nan after what had happened in the E-Hall. As such, he had decided to step forward and help Qin Nan this time. Hua Jian's expression changed as he took a few steps backward as if he had just received a great blow. At that instant the outcome of the battle was clear. As for Qin Nan, he did not expect everything to go so smoothly either. It proved one thing. Unrighteous deeds are doomed to destruction, and good deeds are always rewarded. Sister Monarch Beast, I believe you already know what's going on. I'm only a mere human disciple of the Dragon Emperor Court. I didn't expect to be treated so unfairly in the Dragon Emperor Court, so I'm not happy about it. Qin Nan said with a righteous look. Even though you can punish them, the incident has left an indelible shadow in my heart. Therefore, I want the Tao Origin Crystal to stay at the Human Peak for a year. Next year, when we recruit new disciples, they will be able to use the Tao Origin Crystal to rank up to the Martial Ancestor realm. Qin Nan knew that he would not be able to keep the Tao Origin Crystal to himself. However, he wanted to use this matter to make Hua Jian and Elder Hua suffer the blow they deserve. On top of that, he was planning to keep the Tao Origin Crystal for a year. Such a long time was enough for his martial ancestor realm to reach a higher level. Once that happened, Qin Nan would no longer need the Tao Origin Qi. As for why he was suing Elder Hua and Hua Jian at this time, the reason was that the scene was too grand. Countless elders and disciples had gathered at the place. If the nine-tailed monarch beast did not punish them, the Dragon Emperor Court would lose its reputation and the rules. When that happened, the Dragon Emperor clan would surely fall into chaos. Therefore, either way, the nine-tailed monarch beast would have to punish them severely. You're right. I'll let the Tao Origin Crystal stay at your place for a year. The nine-tailed monarch beast's eyes flickered with admiration. This Qin Nan was extremely meticulous with his words. Not bad at all. As for the elders and disciples, even though they were jealous, they could only let out sighs. It was inappropriate for them to speak now. After all, Qin Nan was being treated unfairly by the Dragon Emperor Court. As for you two, the nine-tailed monarch beast squinted her eyes and glanced at Hua Jian and Elder Hua. She was about to speak when a rare occurrence took place. Bang! A rift was torn open in midair, from which a 7-inch-long purple dragon slowly walked out from it, unleashing a shocking dragon might that swept the crowd. Chapter 851. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 854. Peak Leader of the Human Peak Chief. The Chief is here too. Greetings, Chief. Greetings, Chief. The eyes of the elders and disciples were filled with astonishment before they swiftly reacted and brought their fists together to greet the Chief. Advertisement. Access. Elder Hua and Hua Jian's faces turned extremely pale. The 7-inch purple dragon, the chief, was here in person. This was going to be a huge mess. Chief. Qin Nan frowned slightly. Why did this matter attract the dean's attention? In addition to him, the same question arose in the hearts of the crowd too. Mr. Dean, since you're here, I'll leave this matter to you. I'll take my precious disciple back to cultivate. The 9-tailed monarch beast said with a smile as she waved her hand, causing a glow to encapsulate Moo Moo's figure. Before she left, she did not forget to glance at Qin Nan. Little brother Qin Nan, if you have the chance, come to the 9-tailed Skyfox Peak and spend the night with me. Her charming words made countless elders and disciples blush. Her words really made their imaginations run wild. They couldn't control themselves and couldn't extricate themselves from it. Qin Nan did not show any reaction, but his lips twisted slightly. I've learned everything that's happened. The 7-inch purple dragon glanced down at the crowd and calmly said, First, Elder Hua and Hua Jian, you two have disobeyed the rules of the Dragon Emperor Court. I now sentence you two to be imprisoned in the Dragon Emperor Cave for 5 years. Any objections? Many of the elders and disciples were shocked when they heard this. The punishment was extremely severe. Both Elder Hua and Elder Hua were scared out of their wits. But now they could only accept it. Their only regret was that they had offended Qin Nan just for a few thousand monarch crystals. The 7-inch purple dragon waved its claw, causing a tremendous force to encapsulate the duo's figure, causing them to disappear. Following this, it glanced at Qin Nan and nodded. Qin Nan, not only did you not do anything wrong, your performance was outstanding too. From today onward, I'll appoint you as the peak leader of the human peak, granting you the authority to set up any palace on the human peak, granting you the authority to recruit 50 disciples each year. As soon as these words were spoken, the expressions of everyone present changed. F***K me. Are you kidding me? Qin Nan had taken away the Tao origin crystal, yet he still managed to obtain such great benefits? Even Qin Nan was overjoyed upon hearing this. Apart from his status, most importantly, the peak leader of the human peak. In other words, from today onward, everything in the human peak belonged to him, allowing him to do whatever he wanted. Even the elders of the Dragon Emperor Court would be punished by the disciplinary hall of the Dragon Emperor Court if they trespassed on the human peak without his permission. In other words, the benefits were endless. Hang on, why did the chief of the Dragon Emperor Court change his attitude toward me all of a sudden? Qin Nan frowned slightly. The fact that Xian Yu was no longer his servant indicated that the chief of the Dragon Emperor Court was extremely disappointed in him. Although it was shocking to see Qin Nan taking the Tao origin crystal away, most of the crowd clearly knew that he had done it with some kind of artifact or some special method, instead of relying on his cultivation or martial spirit. I'm sure all of you are confused. Why is it that Qin Nan was not punished by the Olympiad, but was rewarded instead? The purple dragon spoke with a loud voice as if it were able to see through everyone's thoughts. The elders and disciples nodded their heads. It was definitely not a good thing for the Dragon Emperor Court. I hope that all the elders and disciples will take this as an example and remember that in our Dragon Emperor clan, the most important thing is to obey the rules. Even if you're a core disciple, you're allowed to enjoy preferential treatment, but you're not allowed to break the rules unless you can defeat me in a fight. The 7-inch purple dragon calmly said. Furthermore, I hope you all can learn from Qin Nan. Not only the Tao Source Chamber, the cultivation grounds of the mountains, the godly dragon space, and the 10,000 Beast Garden have countless treasures, including those similar to the Tao origin crystal. As long as you are able to take them with your own strength within the rules, you will not be in the wrong. The Dragon Emperor Court is the strongest among the two-starred factions of the Middle Continent. We will speak according to the rules, and we will speak according to our strength. It's fine to obey the rules, but don't stick to them. The rules are set, but humans are alive. All of you blindly follow the rules and cultivate without thinking about how to take away more Tao Source energy or Tao Source crystals. What's the point of that? The words served as a shocking explosion that struck the hearts of the crowd. The rules could be obeyed, but they could not stick to them. This chief of the Dragon Emperor Court is indeed extraordinary. It seems like the Dragon Emperor Court didn't only rely on its strength to achieve what it has today. Qin Nan nodded his head. All right, time to disperse. The purple dragon uttered the last sentence before its figure disappeared into the rift. However, before it left, its eyes glanced at Qin Nan thoughtfully. This kid had done well this time. He was able to make the entire Dragon Emperor court boil with excitement even though he was only a martial ancestor. His demeanor was not inferior to Duan Tian's in the slightest. After the chief left, Qin Nan glanced at the elders and disciples and brought his fists together as a sudden thought crossed his mind. Elders, senior and junior brothers, I've just been appointed as the peak leader of the human peak, thus I won't be able to entertain you for now. Besides, in 3 days' time, the human peak will have a special cultivation ground. Anyone who pays a certain amount of monarch crystals will be allowed to cultivate there. Upon saying this, Qin Nan paused for a moment before he continued, I believe everyone is aware of the benefits of the Tao Origin Qi. Saying this, his figure entered the human peak with a flicker. Since he had spent so much effort to acquire the Tao Origin crystal, it went without saying that he would use it to its fullest potential. Not only would it help his cultivation, it would also earn him a huge amount of monarch crystals, which he could use to rank up the divine battle spirit. As expected, the eyes of the disciples who only had the cultivation of the second or third layer of the martial ancestor flickered after hearing this. Holy crap! That's great! With the help of the Tao Origin Qi, I'll be able to rank up. Ha ha ha, that's great news! Quick, go back and prepare the monarch crystals. The place turned lively once again. After all, they would only be able to absorb the Tao Origin Qi when they ranked up to the martial ancestor. How impressive of this Qin Nan, what he did was brilliant. However, among the crowd, a young man wearing an ordinary black robe murmured with glittering eyes. He was none other than Huadichen, ranked 13th on the monarch ranking, the young master of the Blue Glow Unicorn tribe. That being said, no one was aware of his presence, as he had done it on purpose. Only by keeping a low profile would he be able to observe the situation. That being said, if I have the chance, I won't show any mercy. Huadichen's eyes turned cold all of a sudden. Although he was impressed by Qin Nan, there was no way he would let Qin Nan go so easily. As the saying went, one had to look at the owner before beating a dog. Only he was allowed to beat his dog. No one else was allowed to do so. On top of that, among the crowd, Xianyu glanced at her surroundings sneakily before heading to the human peak. The day was destined to be lively. Be it Qin Nan moving away the Tao Origin crystal, or Qin Nan becoming the peak leader of the human peak, or the 7-inch purple dragon's words, it had greatly influenced the people of the Dragon Emperor Court. In fact, many other 2-star forces had also noticed this matter. Somehow, Qin Nan's name was made known to the public once again. However, the people of the Dragon Emperor Court, including the elders and disciples, were unaware of it. If one were to glance down from above, they would discover that among the mountains of the Dragon Emperor clan, the human peak that had always been quiet was emitting a faint purple glow, which made it stand out from the rest. Somehow, the atmosphere of the entire Dragon Emperor clan became lively, as if it had been injected with a new aura. Chapter 852. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua Net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 855, Apprentice Mount. Meanwhile, in the deepest part of the Dragon Emperor Court. Full text access. Chief, the diabolic martial monarch beast said with a calm smile. Didn't you say that you no longer have any hope in Qin Nan? You've given him such a great reward. He must have suddenly realized how handsome Qin Nan is, the nine-tailed martial monarch beast giggled. Cough cough, nine-tailed, don't be ridiculous. The middle-aged man let out a cough before his eyes flickered as he said, You don't know the origin of the Tao origin crystals. I found it when I was competing with the 2 Emperor Wus at the 100 Mountains. Besides, the crystal had its own spirit, which was equivalent to the half-Emperor Wu's level. However, it was too stubborn, so I completely destroyed its spirit and brought it back to the human peak. The nine-tailed martial monarch beast and the diabolic martial monarch beast were startled. They did not know there was such a story behind the Tao origin crystal. Even though its spirit is gone, its spirit is still there. What kind of artifact or method would it take to make it submit and fly out of its own accord? Therefore, as you mentioned, Seventh Brother isn't blind, and there's a reason why he chose Qin Nan. The middle-aged man said. After a slight ponder, he added, I'll pay a visit to the human peak soon to investigate his background. I'll be able to tell whether he's the real deal or not. True self? The nine-tailed martial monarch beast and the diabolic martial monarch beast were startled. Even they had not seen his true self for many years. Qin Nan glanced at the human peak with his left eye emitting a flicker. In just a short period of time, many trees and flowers had developed their own spirits, and even possessed a certain level of cultivation. The fishes and prawns in the river all developed extremely strong spiritual intelligence, and actually began to slowly inhale and exhale spiritual energy. Qin Nan, I never thought that the human peak would have a chance to regain its glory one day. At this moment, the six-spirited dragon Vane flew over and sighed. To it, all of this was like a dream. Senior, the human peak's future development will only get better and better. Qin Nan let out a faint smile and said, however, I'll have to trouble Senior with one thing. Using the Tao origin crystals as the core, please set up a cultivation hall divided into 3, 6, and 9 levels, and set up a formation to control the flow of Tao origin energy. Opening up the cultivation hall and guiding everything, this was something Qin Nan could not do. Alright. The six-spirited dragon Vane burst out laughing as it transformed into a human figure. It reached out with both hands and unleashed a shocking force, summoning countless boulders to construct the palace. It then proceeded to construct a formation that connected to the origin crystal of the passage. Qin Nan learned a lot after taking a glance at it. He then took a step forward and prepared to go into seclusion. His priority now was to improve his cultivation to the first-layer martial ancestor realm. Who's there? Suddenly, Qin Nan halted in his tracks and glanced at the foot of the mountain with an icy gaze. It's me. Xian Yu panted heavily as she ran up from the foot of the mountain. Luckily, she had been to the human peak before, thus she had a badge. Otherwise, she would not have been able to pass through the defensive formation. What are you doing here? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. This guy still had the guts to show up here? Cough cough, well. Xian Yu let out a cough and said in a righteous tone, Qin Nan, now that you've become the peak leader of the human peak, the human peak's development is still weak. I, Xian Yu, am willing to join the human peak and contribute to it. When the time comes. While speaking, his eyes glanced at the Tao origin crystal floating in the air. Love go little say, that was indeed a great idea. He had taken the initiative to surrender as his cultivation had yet to rank up to the martial progenitor realm. Most importantly, if he were to acquire the Tao origin qi, it would greatly benefit him, allowing his cultivation to improve rapidly. So you're trying to join me? Qin Nan wore a grin. Why didn't you take the opportunity to join me? Why did you oppose me so many times? Following this, Qin Nan's eyes turned cold. He was about to ask this Xian Yu to leave when a thought crossed his mind. A Skyhowl wolf with a 4th grade Tian ranked martial spirit, who was also the young master of the Skyhowl wolf tribe, was not a bad choice to use her as a mount. You can stay, but you'll have to be my mount, Qin Nan calmly said. What? Be your mount? Xian Yu's eyes widened. Following this, flames of fury burst out from her body. How scornful of him! He even dared to ask her to be his mount. It was an utter humiliation and trampling on his pride. Be my mount, and a probationary one at that. Qin Nan's expression remained the same as he said in a calm tone, You're just a probationary mount, which means you're not my official mount yet. Xian Yu's hair stood on end as her eyes emitted a red glow. That was too much. That was too much. This guy was simply courting death. However, before she could become enraged, Qin Nan raised his hand and fired a stream of primordial qi. If you're willing to be my probationary mount for 2 years, I'll provide you with at least 20 streams of primordial qi, and the Tao origin crystal of the human peak for your cultivation too. What do you think? What? Primordial qi? 20 streams of primordial qi. Xian Yu's eyes widened as her face was filled with astonishment. This was actually the primordial Meng energy. This guy actually had such a rare item on him, and he could give him 20 strands within 2 years. If it had these 20 strands of blood, its bloodline would undergo an earth-shattering change. Forget it if you don't agree. Qin Nan withdrew the primordial qi and pretended to leave. No, no, no. Xian Yu immediately waved her hand. She let out an awkward smile when she realized her attitude. Her eyes flickered with a hint of doubt. Are you really willing to give me 20 streams of primordial qi within 2 years? You're not lying to me? Qin Nan did not say anything. He pointed at the Tao origin crystal at the top of the human peak with a calm expression, yet an imperious aura was being emitted from his body. Xian Yu's figure shuddered. That's right, this guy was able to bring the Tao origin crystal here before the martial ancestor arrived. What else was impossible? Fine, I'll do it. Xian Yu clenched her teeth and said after an intense struggle. 2 years later, when her bloodline evolved, she would be able to enter the 10,000 Beast Garden. She would surely stir great chaos in the Dragon Emperor court. For the sake of the glory in the future, it was worth it to be patient now. Following this, Qin Nan decisively fired a stream of primordial qi into Xian Yu's body. Even though Xian Yu was shameless and narcissistic, she was a straightforward person. She swore that she would never betray Qin Nan, and would stick with Qin Nan. Return to your true form. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he uttered a groan. Xian Yu hesitated for a moment, before his figure exploded into a 5-zhang-tall giant wolf. His fur stood erect like silver needles, and his eyes were bloodshot. A ferocious aura was emitted from his body, resulting in a magnificent sight. Qin Nan's figure landed on the wolf's head with a flicker. To the peak! Roar! Xian Yu uttered a roar into the sky and sprang into the sky with a kick, causing a strong gust of wind to sweep the surroundings, blowing the trees, the plants, and the river away. At that instant, she rose into the air and soared into the sky. Qin Nan stood on the wolf's head and glanced downward. For some reason, his heart was filled with excitement and hot blood. The feeling of standing on the head of a beast and looking down at the heavens and earth was indeed different. Even though he was only standing on the head of a wolf, whose cultivation was weaker than the martial ancestors, he was looking down at the human peak. However, he now had a cultivation ground that belonged to him. He now had the unique Tao of the martial ancestor that he had invented. He also had a mount in name. He believed that it would not take long for him to achieve the greater success stage of his martial path, which would surely shock the world. He would surely stand at the peak of the heavens and shatter the South Heaven Gate with the help of the undefeatable beast. P.S. Even though there's no 6th update, I've finally written the 5th. Love you. Chapter 853. Genius 1 Second Remember Love Divided by Little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 856 Cheen Nan's Martial Ancestor First Layer. Alright, you should go and assist Senior in the construction of the cultivation hall. Access. When the time comes, pick the best cave and cultivate diligently. Don't slack off. Cheen Nan calmed his thoughts and patted Xian Yu's head, before arriving beside the Tao Origin crystal with a kick. Humph humph, what kind of attitude is that? With enough Tao Origin crystals, my cultivation speed will be much faster than yours. Xian Yu shook his head and harumphed twice, before focusing all his attention on the cultivation hall. She had been longing for the Tao Origin Qi day and night. It's me. Cheen Nan placed his hand on the Tao Origin crystal. The Tao Origin crystal shuddered slightly as if it was aware of his presence, before emitting a gentle purple glow that encapsulated his figure, bringing him to the center of the Tao Origin crystal. Very well, this way, no one will be able to peek at my cultivation. Cheen Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. The Tao Origin crystal was a precious artifact. Even a martial monarch would not be able to peek through its true form. Let's start cultivating. Cheen Nan mumbled to himself. With a thought, 6 martial seeds slowly floated out from his body. 5 of them possessed formidable auras, while the remaining one was still quite powerful. It's only a martial seed now. In order to evolve it into a martial tree, I'll need to rely on the Tao Origin Qi. Apart from that, I'll also need to refine the will of various monarch arts and my own will into the martial seed. Cheen Nan collected his thoughts as the divine battle spirit floated out from his back, absorbing the Tao Origin Qi into the martial seed. Love Go Little Say Ku read the full article. The 6 martial seeds shuddered slightly at that instant, as if they were responding to Cheen Nan. Luckily, I've learned over 100 monarch arts. Otherwise, if it were anyone else, even if they managed to refine the 6 martial seeds, they wouldn't be able to grow in a short period of time. Cheen Nan's lips curled upward as he exhaled deeply, causing his aura to change tremendously. Mind and spirit as one, as if intoxicated. The countless monarch arts rose in Cheen Nan's mind. Together with his divine sense, they turned into 6 mystical rays that were imperceptible to the naked eye and entered the 6 martial seeds. The martial seed stiffened slightly. In the next moment, it let out a series of roars like an excited roar. Time passed slowly, and 8 days passed in the blink of an eye. Within these 8 days, Cheen Nan's 6 martial seeds had undergone tremendous changes. Each seed had a crystalline green sprout on its surface, emitting a strong martial aura. What was worth mentioning was that the growth rate of the martial seed formed by the sacred force was a lot faster than the martial seed formed by the force of the divine god of battle. As soon as the sprout appeared, it had already grown to a height of 3 inches. The martial seed formed by the sacred force is a lot weaker than the martial seed formed by the force of the divine god of battle. It seems like I'll be able to refine the sacred force in advance. Cheen Nan activated his divine sense and directed the formidable Tao Origin Qi to enter the martial seed first. Bang bang bang! The cultivation continued. Another 8 days later, as soon as the sun rose, Cheen Nan's eyes flickered with excitement inside the Tao Origin crystal. If I can't do it now, when should I do it? Following his shout, the martial seed formed by the power of the sacred realm grew into a 3-meter-tall green tree. With a bang, several tree trunks extended from the tree trunk, and with the tree trunk as the core, countless branches and leaves extended from it. These branches and leaves were emitting a strong cultivation intent, with faint patterns carved on them, each representing a different monarch art. I've finally refined a martial seed. A hint of joy appeared on Cheen Nan's face. In the path of cultivation, the further one progressed, the slower it would be to rank up. Even with Qin Nan's second-grade Tian ranked divine battle spirit and the support of a tremendous amount of Tao origin Qi, it still took him a long time to refine a one-zhang tall martial tree. However, the main reason was that Qin Nan's path was different from the others. When the others refined their martial seeds, they would be able to trigger the tribulation, allowing their martial seeds to improve instantly. Judging from Qin Nan's current situation, he was not sure if he would be able to trigger the tribulation when all 6 of his martial seeds reached a height of one zhang tall. Let's take a look at the human peak. Qin Nan collected his thoughts and scanned the human peak with his left eye. 16 days later, the 6-spirited dragon vein and the crescent moon had completed the construction of the cultivation hall. From afar, it looked like a giant dragon. Qin Nan immediately realized that the hall was split into 3 levels, connected to the Tao origin crystal through forbidding auras, etc., allowing the Tao origin Qi to be absorbed at different levels. Very well. Qin Nan swiftly transmitted his voice to the 6-spirited dragon vein. Senior, let's announce to the Dragon Emperor Court that cultivating in the upper tier for a month will cost 500 monarch crystals. 300 for the middle tier, 100 for the lower tier. The upper tier will not be sold for half a month, but the middle tier and the lower tier will cost 100 monarch crystals and 50 monarch crystals respectively. Qin Nan had put some thought into the pricing, as the cultivation hall would only be open to disciples with a cultivation of the 5th layer martial ancestor or below. Furthermore, each disciple would have different requirements, thus Qin Nan had tried his best to consider them all. After all, if the cultivation hall was fully occupied, he would be able to earn at least 5,000 monarch crystals for a month. This could be said to be an extremely large sum of money. Sure, not a problem. The 6-spirited dragon vein transmitted its voice to Qin Nan. Qin Nan withdrew his thoughts and immersed himself in his cultivation. A strong Tao origin Qi surged toward him, allowing the 5 martial seeds to grow rapidly. Day by day, time passed by while Qin Nan was cultivating in seclusion. The cultivation hall of the human peak was opened, which instantly attracted the attention of countless disciples. In just 2 days, all the rooms were fully occupied, with those who had chosen to stay for a month. Some even failed to secure a room because they were late. This caused many of the elders and disciples to be extremely envious. It was easy to imagine how much Qin Nan would earn in a month, and it would be free. However, they could not do anything about it. As long as Qin Nan was in the Dragon Emperor Court, apart from the 3 authorities, no one would dare to harm Qin Nan. However, on this particular day, the Tao origin crystal seemed to be aware of something. Following a buzz, a stream of pure Tao origin Qi surged toward Qin Nan's 5 martial seeds. Whoosh! Following this, Qin Nan's 5 martial seeds were no longer there, as they had turned into a one-zhang tall tree emitting a purple glow. The tree emitted a faint will of the divine god of battle, which towered above the heavens and earth. Compared to the 5 martial trees, the one that Qin Nan had refined previously was significantly weaker. For example, the martial sacred realm was categorized into the peak martial sacred realm, the undefeatable martial sacred realm, the law-defying martial sacred realm, and the unique martial sacred realm. The sacred force of each level was different, thus the martial ancestor tree he had refined was different too. It's done. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with surprise. Each of the 6 martial trees had reached a height of 1 zhang. If they were stacked on top of one another, the total height would reach a height of 6 zhang. That being said, the strength of the martial ancestor tree was not the same. The 6th layer martial ancestor tree was extremely terrifying. Apart from its height of 6 zhang, the will of the monarch arts had reached its limit. However, right at this moment, strands of obscure heaven and earth energy rippled out. The tribulation? I'll need to reach the 1st layer martial progenitor realm to trigger the tribulation. Qin Nan let out a relieved sigh seeing this instead of showing any sign of fear. Once he overcame the tribulation, his martial ancestor tree would grow rapidly. It might even produce the force of the divine god of battle. What's going on? Chapter 854. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 857. Her back in the day after the surges of heaven and earth gathered together, they seemed to have sensed something and began to rapidly retreat in all directions. Access. The force of the heavens and earth was withdrawing on its own. This was the reason why Qin Nan's expression changed tremendously. Could it be that my cultivation has surpassed the rules of cultivation, thus the force of the heavens and earth does not want to give me the tribulation? The thought crossed Qin Nan's mind as he calmed his thoughts. The reason being that when a cultivator achieved the martial sacred realm, surpassing the limits of the heavens and earth, the force of the heavens and earth would be infuriated, causing the tribulation to become extremely terrifying. It might even summon various evil forces to eliminate the cultivator. Qin Nan's cultivation had surpassed the rules of cultivation, thus the situation was even worse. That being said, in a way, it was something to be proud of. Among the countless geniuses of the Kanglan continent since ancient times, how many of them were able to achieve such a feat? However, as a matter of fact, not having the tribulation was not beneficial to Qin Nan at all. If that's the case, there's only one way left. Since the force of the heavens and earth is here, I won't allow you to leave. Even if you don't want me to leave, you still have to summon the tribulation. Qin Nan's eyes flickered sharply as 6 martial ancestor trees were unleashed at the same time, suppressing downward from 6 different directions. Bang! The interior of the Tao origin crystal was instantly sealed off, preventing anything from escaping. The Tao origin crystal seemed to be aware of the situation too. With a buzz, wisps of purple glow were emitted into the surroundings, which helped Qin Nan seal off the force of the heavens and earth. Thanks. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he took out the mysterious golden seal with a flip of his hand. No matter what, he had to keep this little bit of power of heaven and earth. When the time came, he would think of a way to use this power of heaven and earth to attract even more power of heaven and earth and create the lightning tribulation. If his actions were made known to the Middle Continent, it would most likely cause a great uproar. Even Emperor Wu would not be able to sit still. Since ancient times, this was the first existence that dared to forcefully seize the power of the heavens and earth. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The wisps of energy of the heavens and earth seemed to have sensed something, causing them to erupt with shocking fury. It did not expect the detestable bastard was still trying to seal it away. However, even though he was furious, the force of the heavens and earth swiftly gathered and transformed into a huge sword that slashed upward. Golden seal, lend me a hand. Qin Nan growled and raised his right arm. The force of the heavens and earth was sentient. If it did not behave itself, he would let it have a taste of the heaven-shattering saber. However, at that instant, a roar exploded in Qin Nan's mind. Qin Nan, don't lock it down, let it go. If you leave it behind, the heavens will discover your location and send down the 9 heavens' divine thunder, destroying you and the Dragon Emperor court. The voice was extremely familiar, as it belonged to the mysterious young man from the martial serendipity pavilion. Qin Nan was shocked upon hearing this. Would it attract the heavens and the 9 heavens' divine thunder? Without hesitation, he withdrew the mysterious golden seal and the 6 martial ancestor trees and said, "Crystal, let him go." The Tao origin crystal let out a buzz, causing the purple glow to dissipate. The force of the heavens and earth felt relieved, as if they had been frightened by the previous incident, causing them to flee at a shocking pace. Senior, the force of the heavens and earth won't bother me anymore. Without the tribulation, my cultivation will slow down significantly. Qin Nan wore a wry smile. His current situation was completely different than the other cultivators. The other cultivators would be extremely depressed when they encountered the tribulation, but he could not wait for the tribulation to arrive. It's not a bad thing, as it means that the heavens have yet to be destroyed by that person. The mysterious young man of the Martial Serendipity Pavilion paused for a moment before switching the topic. You've surpassed the rules of cultivation, thus it's normal for the force of the heavens and earth to not bother you. However, it's not like there's no other way. In the history of the Kanglan continent, there was once someone who surpassed the rules of cultivation just like you. Same as me? Qin Nan's eyes widened. It was extremely difficult for him to surpass the rules of cultivation. Without a unique force like the force of the divine god of battle, it was almost impossible for him to surpass the rules of cultivation. So, who was it that had done it before? It's the senior inside your body. The mysterious young man of the Martial Serendipity Pavilion said with a smile. The path she took was different from yours. She abandoned her martial spirit and used her own unique martial art to absorb the chi of the heavens and earth. She didn't use her martial spirit? Unique martial art? Absorbing the chi of the heavens and earth? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. In the Kanglan continent, since ancient times, cultivators had to communicate with the heavens and earth with their martial spirits in order to absorb the chi. Without a martial spirit, the chi of the heavens and earth would not enter their bodies. The mysterious woman in the bronze mirror had actually accomplished such a shocking feat in the past? I won't say too much about her past. You'll know when the time comes. That senior was rejected by the heavens and earth after surpassing the rules of cultivation, thus the force of the heavens and earth did not arrive. She then used a method to steal the force of the heavens and earth from others and create her own tribulation. The mysterious young man of the Martial Serendipity Pavilion let out a smile and said, Qin Nan, the mysterious golden seal in your hand does possess such an ability. Therefore, you should think about the heavenly lightning tribulation yourself. After saying this, the voice completely disappeared. Stealing the force of the heavens and earth from others? Creating her own tribulation? That's possible with the golden seal? Qin Nan was stunned in place at that instant. The mysterious woman in the copper mirror was so daring. She was most likely the only person who had done such a thing in the past. However, this method was absolutely brilliant. The tribulation of the heavens and earth was a headache for every cultivator. Not only did the mysterious woman's method reduce the chance of her opponent's death, it was also able to make up for her own losses. It was a win-win situation. That being said, if she were to steal the tribulation of her opponent, it would be a great trouble to her opponent. Impressive, impressive. Qin Nan collected his thoughts and his eyes flickered with astonishment. He glanced at the copper mirror in his divine sense and exclaimed, I guess I'm not the only one in this world. The heaven-breaking emperor is a maniac. Who would have thought you would be a maniac too? Separating from her martial spirit, inventing her own martial art, and stealing the tribulation. Was that something an ordinary person could do? Saying this, Qin Nan's heart shuddered, as a curiosity he had never felt before rose in his heart. The mysterious woman, who exactly was she? What happened after she surpassed the heavens and earth? However, at that instant, an icy roar exploded in Qin Nan's mind. Qin Nan, you're the maniac. If you dare to say that again, I'll make you wish you were dead. Chapter 855. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 858. The chief arrives in person. Qin Nan could feel his hair standing on end, as if he had fallen into an icy cellar. Read the full article. Although the aura of the martial monarch realm was not enough to shake him, the aura of the mysterious woman in the copper mirror was still quite terrifying. This, Qin Nan instantly reacted and was left speechless, not knowing what to say. The copper mirror had rarely shown herself, except when she asked him for some chaos chi in the beginning. He had no idea why she would be enraged when he was called a lunatic. In Qin Nan's opinion, the word lunatic was sometimes used in a negative way, but sometimes it was used as a compliment. Be careful next time. The mysterious woman snapped coldly, before the copper mirror returned to its calm state. Qin Nan wiped the sweat off his forehead and was left speechless before he shook his head. Either way, the words of the martial serendipity pavilion had opened his eyes. At the same time, he gradually realized that the copper mirror and the golden seal in his body were not just a deterrent, but they had their own uses. As the saying goes, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Now that I've acquired these two treasures, I'll have to take some responsibility in the future. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. The martial serendipity pavilion had mentioned that the tribulation of 3 lifetimes was related to the mysterious woman in the copper mirror. He was now like a fish in water with the help of the copper mirror and the golden seal, thus he would have to contribute when the tribulation of 3 lifetimes arrived. Let's not think about it now. The mysterious golden seal is able to absorb the force of the heavens and earth to trigger the tribulation. I'll have to find a way to sneak into the godly dragon space when someone is undergoing the tribulation. Qin Nan collected his thoughts and made up his mind. The godly dragon space was the place where the disciples of the Dragon Emperor Court were able to overcome their tribulations. Almost all the books you want to read are available. It's more stable than other websites, and the updates are faster too. There are no advertisements. However, under normal circumstances, many disciples would immediately undergo their tribulation after becoming a martial ancestor. Most of the newly recruited disciples this year had already passed. Only a small portion of them were left. Therefore, this matter could not be rushed and could only wait. As long as he could transcend the tribulation, it was a good thing. Tao Source Crystal, it's all thanks to you this time. Take this wisp of primordial chi as a gift. Before Qin Nan left, he flicked his finger and inserted the last stream of vital chi into the Tao Origin Crystal. The Tao Origin Crystal shuddered violently as countless purple lights flickered chaotically. It was as if it was saying that this strand of primordial chi was extremely important to it. Qin Nan let out a calm smile and went out. As soon as he came out, a few whooshing sounds could be heard, which turned out to be the 2 hounds, 1 mouse and Xian Yu, whose face was still filled with anger. Ah! Lord Qin Nan! It's young Master Qin Nan. Why did you take this bastard wolf as your mount? Why don't you take us as your mounts? We only need 10 streams of primordial chi, it's more practical. Yellow and Blacky yelled. The heavenly fortune mouse landed on Qin Nan's shoulder and stared at the 2 hounds disdainfully. Where was their dignity as a heavenly fortune hound? Xian Yu's lips twitched too. She had never seen such shameless hounds, who were shameless enough to beg someone to take them as their mounts. Not only did they beg, but why did they call him a bastard? Yellow and Blacky were unaware of it. What bullsh *t dignity and dignity. Their rich experience told them that the primordial chi was the most important thing to them. Piss off! Qin Nan snapped and lashed out a kick. Even though he lacked mounts, he had never thought of riding these 2 hounds everywhere. Qin Nan, here are 5,000 monarch crystals. Xian Yu curled her lips. For some reason, she felt a lot better after seeing that the 2 hounds had failed to get what they wanted. How could he be a bastard? Even a wolf with mixed fur would be stronger than you 2 dogs. 5,000 monarch crystals? Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he glanced at the cultivation hall. The cultivation rooms were fully occupied with disciples who were cultivating in seclusion while absorbing the Tao Origin Chi. Master Qin Nan. We've been following you for a long time. We've witnessed your legendary rise from a mere disciple to a peak leader of the human peak. If you're not going to take us as your mounts, let us cultivate in the cultivation hall." The two hounds flipped over and wagged their tails shamelessly. All right, off you go." Chin Nan waved his hand helplessly. Even he was left with no choice when the two hounds decided to be thick-skinned. Yellow and Blackie were overjoyed, who had the urge to pounce on Chin Nan and give him a kiss. They quickly disappeared into the distance to find a place to cultivate. The heavenly fortune mouse harumphed coldly and sat on Blackie's head with a flicker before leaving on its back. Xian Yu's aura had almost reached the martial progenitor realm. She waved at Chin Nan before vanishing into thin air. "I'll devour the monarch crystals before heading to the godly dragon space." Chin Nan did not waste any time as he proceeded to a hall. This hall was called the Human Hall, and it was purposely built by the six-spirited dragon Vane. Now that the human peak was no longer the same as before, it could still recruit 50 disciples every year. It wanted to use this hall as the human peak's hall for meetings and other things once the human peak grew stronger. As soon as Chin Nan entered the hall, his expression changed tremendously. The reason for that was because, at some point in time, a figure had appeared in the palace. "Who's there?" Chin Nan instantly unleashed his left eye, which emitted a purple glow. Following a glimpse, his expression changed tremendously. The reason being that he could not even see the figure's facial features. It was as if the person did not exist at all. An impressive eye technique, but it's useless against me. The figure calmly said, "Allow me to introduce myself. People call me the Dragon Emperor." Dragon Emperor? Chin Nan was startled, before he quickly collected his thoughts. In this world, apart from the mysterious half-god region, there was only one person who was qualified to be called the Dragon Emperor. The person was none other than the chief of the Dragon Emperor court. "I'm Chin Nan, pleased to meet you, chief." Chin Nan collected his thoughts and brought his fists together. His expression was filled with a hint of confusion. It was obvious that the figure was none other than the chief himself. However, what was he doing here at the human peak? Let's make it short. The Dragon Emperor's tone remained calm, as if he were speaking in a superior manner. "In the past, Seventh Brother gave you the reverse scale, cleansed your body with the dragon blood, and asked you to come to the Dragon Emperor court because he was instructed by the Heavenly Fortune faction to find someone who is extremely important to the Beast tribe." Heavenly Fortune faction? Beast tribe? Chin Nan was startled. Forget about the Heavenly Fortune faction. The Beast tribe does not only refer to the Dragon Emperor court, but every beast with a powerful bloodline in the entire Kanglan continent, including the God Beast tribe and the God Beast Forbidden Ground in the half-god region. Chin Nan's heart shuddered hearing this. If it was the Beast tribe of the Kanglan continent, and the god beast that the Dragon Emperor mentioned was most likely a martial god realm existence, then the things that were involved were beyond his imagination. Although the Dragon Emperor's figure was blurry, Chin Nan could clearly sense his eyes emitting a glow that could illuminate the endless darkness. "Chin Nan, I don't believe in the Heavenly Fortune faction. The Beast tribe doesn't have much time left, and we can't afford to wait any longer. Therefore, I'm here today to test you in person." The Dragon Emperor's voice paused for a moment. "If you pass the test, the Dragon Emperor court will be your support. If possible, the entire Beast tribe will be your support too. If you fail the test..." Chapter 856. Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 859. The astonishment of the Dragon Emperor. At that instant, the entire hall was covered in a thin layer of ice. Gusts of chilly wind blew in all directions, resulting in a bone-chilling sensation. To read a book, please go here. Changing the color of the heavens and earth with a single glance. The meaning behind the words was self-explanatory. Qin Nan's expression remained the same, but his eyes became calm as he said, "Chief, Senior Ancient Purple Golden Battle Dragon, has been kind to me, which is why I'm willing to join the Dragon Emperor court. Besides, I'm not sure what the purpose of the beast race is. Do you think I have to destroy the world just because you want me to? Besides, why do I have to take part in the trial?" The price he had to pay in order to gain the support of the entire beast race was extremely great. Most importantly, the Dragon Emperor was threatening him. If Qin Nan did not follow his will, the Dragon Emperor would eliminate him. Qin Nan hated such threats the most. Even the terrifying presence of the martial Serendipity Pavilion, the mysterious copper mirror, and the golden seal had never threatened Qin Nan. The Dragon Emperor remained still. His eyes emitted a shocking glow in the darkness as he said in a calm tone, "The matter regarding the beast race is quite serious. Even if you pass the trial, your cultivation is still too weak to know the truth. Besides, you have to take part in the trial even if you don't want to. You have no other choice in front of me." The imperious aura grew thicker as he spoke. "Love go little say ku, please go here to read a book, is that so?" Qin Nan squinted his eyes as he immediately scanned the golden seal with his divine sense. The copper mirror and the golden seal were closely related to the beast race. He would be able to leave the Dragon Emperor court safely with the help of these two artifacts. As for the trial, he would definitely not participate in this kind of ridiculous and forceful test. Even the Dragon Emperor would not take part in it. However, at that instant, the copper mirror in Qin Nan's divine sense emitted a faint glow, as the icy voice of the mysterious woman appeared. "You can take part in the trial. It won't bring you any harm." Qin Nan was startled. He did not expect the copper mirror to speak at this moment. "I do have some ties with the beast tribe, but what I do is different from what the beast tribe does. Therefore, if you want to take part in the trial, you will have to rely on yourself. I will not show up to prove your identity," the copper mirror said coldly before regaining its calm. "Show you who I am?" Qin Nan was startled. The words sounded rather strange to him. However, when the Dragon Emperor saw that Qin Nan had remained silent for a long time, a shocking dragon might burst out from his body, which felt like a magnificent mountain as he spoke with a thunderous voice. "Qin Nan, cut the crap. Let the trial begin. I know you're not feeling pleasant being forced, but if you can pass the trial, I'll personally apologize to you. That's not a big deal." With his sharp eyes, he was able to see Qin Nan's resistance. That being said, if he could pass the trial, why would he care if he apologized? He, the Dragon Emperor, only respected the strong. Apologize? Are you telling the truth? Qin Nan collected his thoughts and squinted. "Of course, I'm the Dragon Emperor, a member of the ancient Purple Golden Battle Dragon tribe. Why would I lie?" The Dragon Emperor placed his hands behind himself while emitting a prideful aura. "All right, I'll take part in the trial." Qin Nan nodded his head without hesitation. Since the copper mirror said that the trial would not bring him any harm, it should be the case. Most importantly, if he could make the Dragon Emperor apologize in person, he would not mind taking part in the trial. "Very well." The Dragon Emperor wore a stern look all of a sudden as he said, "The trial is very simple. In front of me, be it martial arts, martial spirits, artifacts, cultivations, etc., as long as you think it's extraordinary, you can use it to prove your worth." "Prove my worth?" Qin Nan was startled before he frowned and said, "Does that mean it won't be a problem for me to use the techniques I've learned in my cultivation?" "Yes." The Dragon Emperor calmly glanced at him and said, "I have to remind you that there are very few things in the Middle Continent that I'm interested in. Therefore, you only have one chance. That being said, I'm not an unreasonable person. I swear in the name of the Dragon God and the heavens and earth that I won't reveal what you're planning to do." Saying this, he raised his hands and swore two vicious oaths. It seems like this Dragon Emperor really cares about the trial, to be willing to apologize and swear an oath to the heavens and earth. That being said, it's still the best outcome. Qin Nan's eyes flickered. If the Dragon Emperor did not do so, he would not reveal what he was planning to do. Chief, please take a closer look. Qin Nan brought his fists together. With a flicker of his divine sense, a magical glow was emitted from his head, as a one-zhang tall, crystalline green martial ancestor tree sprang into the sky, emitting a strong martial intent. Not bad, a law-defying martial sacred transformed into a martial ancestor tree. In comparison, it's extremely rare for someone in the Middle Continent to be able to achieve such a feat. The Dragon Emperor nodded slightly upon seeing this, before his eyes flickered coldly. However, Qin Nan, is this all you've got? It's far from enough. What was so special about a law-defying martial sacred transforming into a martial ancestor tree? Was this Qin Nan trying to trick him? Chief, it's not over yet. Qin Nan wore a calm expression as he activated his divine sense once again. The Dragon Emperor wore a cold grin. If Qin Nan failed to prove his worth today, even though he would not kill Qin Nan, he would not show any mercy if he crippled Qin Nan's cultivation. At that instant, following a loud explosion, a brilliant purple glow appeared above Qin Nan. The Dragon Emperor's eyes flickered with astonishment as he took a closer look. Following this, his expression changed tremendously. He could only see a purple one-zhang tall martial ancestor tree floating in the air, emitting an imperious aura that instantly suppressed the aura of the other tree of 5 progenitors. Is that? The Dragon Emperor's eyes widened. His eyes were filled with astonishment, which was rarely seen in the past few decades. 2 martial ancestor trees. Qin Nan had created 2 martial ancestor trees. How was this possible? He only possessed a first-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit. Throughout history, apart from the senior from 8,000 years ago, even the heaven-shattering martial monarch from 1,000 years ago had failed to achieve such a feat. Even though Qin Nan could not see the Dragon Emperor's face clearly, he could sense the change in the Dragon Emperor's emotions, thus he immediately withdrew his divine sense. Chapter 857. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 860. The Godly Dragon Space Chief. I believe I've passed the test, right? Qin Nan asked. Quick update, the website is refreshing with fewer advertisements. I love this kind of website, please leave a good review. The updates were quick. I've passed the test. The Dragon Emperor immediately collected his thoughts and nodded. His gaze toward Qin Nan burned passionately. He had surpassed the rules of cultivation. In other words, Qin Nan had displayed the same talent as the senior from 8,000 years ago. Besides, in the future, Qin Nan would surely be targeted by those people. If that was the case, Qin Nan would surely side with the Beast tribe. As for his martial spirit? Since Qin Nan had such an outstanding talent, it would not be difficult for him to alter his destiny. In fact, it was highly possible that he would not even need to alter his destiny, as he would embark on a path that no one had ever taken before. Qin Nan, I apologize for threatening you. I hope you won't take it to heart. The Dragon Emperor took a deep breath and brought his fists together without hesitation as he spoke in a sincere tone. He was utterly impressed by Qin Nan's strength, thus it went without saying that he would apologize. After seeing this, Qin Nan's expression turned calmer. He did not like to be threatened, regardless of how strong the person was. It was his nature to do so. From today onward, if you need help, you can contact me with this badge. The Dragon Emperor Court will do everything in our power to ensure your safety. The Dragon Emperor took out a badge and handed it to Qin Nan. Thank you, Senior. Qin Nan received the badge with an expressionless face. Even though the Copper Mirror had mentioned that the Dragon Emperor Court and the Beast Tribe would not harm him in any way, Qin Nan had no idea what they were after, thus he could not use the badge. This thing was not taken for free. The path you are walking is extremely difficult. 8,000 years ago there was someone who succeeded. I hope you will work hard and not be discouraged. The Dragon Emperor looked deeply at Qin Nan and said, I won't say anything unnecessary. Now is not the time. When the time comes, I will naturally tell you everything about the demon race. Hearing this, Qin Nan suddenly had a thought. He asked, Does it require reaching the level of Emperor Wu? How did you know? The Dragon Emperor was slightly taken aback. Qin Nan smiled without saying anything. The Martial Serendipity Pavilion had once told him about the secrets of the Kanglan continent. Once he reached the level of Emperor Wu, the Martial Serendipity Pavilion would tell him everything. He just didn't expect the demon race and the Dragon Emperor Court to have the same request. Seeing that he was unwilling to say more, the Dragon Emperor quickly left after saying a few more words. The trial was extremely important. He had to spread the news to the God-Beast Forbidden Ground. There are too many mysteries now. Be it the Martial Serendipity Pavilion, the mysterious Beast Tribe, or the Copper Mirror, I'm afraid I'll have to reach the level of Emperor Wu to know the answers. Qin Nan exclaimed as he collected his thoughts. His priority now was to improve his strength. He quickly took out the 5,000 monarch crystals and devoured them all. The divine battle spirit did not rank up, but his body produced 2 streams of vital qi. I can go to the godly dragon space and see if any of the disciples are trying to overcome their tribulations to test the golden seal. Qin Nan's eyes flickered as he left the human peak with a flicker. Not long after, Qin Nan arrived at the godly dragon peak. Among the mountains of the Dragon Emperor Court, the godly dragon peak was the shortest one. It was less than half the height of the human peak. However, the peak was emitting a faint dragon aura. Even the trees and flowers on it had mutated and were related to dragons. Normally, the legs of ordinary disciples would tremble when they came to the godly dragon peak. Qin Nan walked up the path and felt extremely comfortable, as if he was soaking in a hot spring. Even his movements were a lot lighter. As he reached the top of the peak, a surprised voice could be heard. Qin Nan, what are you doing here? Are you trying to overcome your tribulation? The owner of the voice was none other than Elder Ao. Greetings, Elder. Qin Nan immediately greeted him. There's no need to greet me. You're already a peak leader. We're on the same level. Elder Ao had a good impression of Qin Nan, but it was mainly because Qin Nan had been bathed in the blood of the ancient purple-golden battle dragon. Elder Ao glanced at Qin Nan with a curious look. Strange, your aura is very strange. It feels like you've achieved the martial ancestor realm, but it doesn't feel like you've achieved the martial ancestor realm? It's different from the half-martial ancestor realm. Qin Nan's eyes widened hearing this. He had been too careless this time, forgetting to conceal his aura. He could not afford to reveal the fact that he had 6 martial ancestor trees. If anyone knew about it, his name would surely spread across the middle continent. Even the half-god region would be aware of his name. Perhaps even the martial gods would set their eyes on him. Qin Nan calmly withdrew his aura and smilingly said, Elder Ao, it might have something to do with the martial art I'm practicing. By the way, Elder Ao, I'm about to achieve the martial ancestor realm. Is it possible for me to enter the godly dragon space earlier? You're not a martial ancestor realm yet? I bet you're just here to observe others' breakthroughs. Elder Ao let out a calm smile. In the Dragon Emperor Court, some powerful geniuses were allowed to enter the space before their tribulations to observe their breakthroughs, just in case they were not prepared enough and ended up dying during their next tribulation. You're the peak leader of the human peak, thus you're allowed to enter, but you only have a day. Apart from that, you're not allowed to enter the purple area of the godly dragon space. Elder Ao straightened his face and said, Qin Nan nodded. Dragons of the four directions, descend from the sky and bite the rift, the vermilion door, open. Elder Ao immediately made his move and formed a seal. 4 illusory gigantic dragons appeared in the sky. These gigantic dragons roared and opened their bloody mouths. At the same time, they bit down viciously at the void. Their sharp teeth sank into the void. Then, with a tug of their heads, they tore the void apart. Shockingly, there was a huge door at the place where it was torn apart. Thank you, Elder. Qin Nan brought his fists together and entered the door with a kick. As soon as he stepped into the godly dragon space, before he had the chance to observe his surroundings, the mysterious golden seal in his divine sense suddenly emitted a blinding golden glow and vibrated vigorously, as if it had found something it was extremely fond of, and could not wait to fly out. Let's wait for a while. Qin Nan calmed the golden seal with his divine sense before raising his head and glancing at it. With a single glance, a look of astonishment appeared on his face. Chapter 858. A Genius Will Remember Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? SegNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 861. The power of the golden seal. The sky was eerie crimson, as if it was formed by the solidification of fresh blood, resulting in a heavy feeling. It also emitted a faint dragon aura. Love go little say, W. Chew. The ground was purple in color, and it was extremely hard. There were some small scorched pits around it, which must have been caused by the heavenly tribulation. The dragon blood represented the sky, while the dragon bones represented the ground. This was the godly dragon space. In addition, this small space was divided into 2 areas. Further away, there was a purple mist that prevented people from seeing what was going on inside. The purple area required one's cultivation to reach the martial sacred realm or possess a 5th grade Tian-ranked martial spirit to enter. Under these 2 standards, the heavenly tribulation could only be transcended outside of the purple zone. Meanwhile, not far away from Qin Nan, a large amount of force of the heavens and earth gathered together, forming stormy clouds with flickers of lightning. It felt like a rare phenomenon was taking place, but the force of the godly dragon space had blocked most of the force of the heavens and earth, preventing it from forming into a rare phenomenon. Below the tribulation was a giant leopard roaring into the sky while its body emitted a mystical glow, as if it was trying to trigger the tribulation. This leopard was the young master of the leopard-striped skyward tribe whom Qin Nan had met at the middle sector city. Previously, Qin Nan had even had a small conflict with it as they were arguing over the location of the teleportation portal. However, after arriving at the Dragon Emperor Court, Qin Nan had never seen it again. He did not expect to stumble into it here at the Dragon Emperor Court. It seems like my luck is not that great today. It's the only beast undergoing the tribulation in the spacious godly dragon space. Qin Nan collected his thoughts and glanced at the other beast. Its tribulation was quite ordinary, significantly weaker than the leopard's. Forget it, let's try the golden seal. Qin Nan waved his hand and set up a forbidding aura to prevent the 2 from discovering his presence. He then directed his divine sense onto Jin Yin. The mysterious golden seal couldn't wait any longer. It rushed out and flew around Qin Nan, buzzing and trembling, as if it was trying to tell Qin Nan something. Do you need me to help you absorb the power of heaven and earth? Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment as he raised his hand and inserted the force of the martial ancestor into the golden seal. Boom! The golden seal emitted a brilliant glow as an invisible force was unleashed, which transformed into 2 giant hands grabbing at the 2 tribulations in the distance, grabbing the force of the heavens and earth from the tribulations. The leopard-striped roar to the sky and the demon disciple did not notice the mysterious power from the golden seal. Their faces were filled with shock. What's going on? Why is the power of heaven and earth disappearing? After recovering from their shock, a hint of joy appeared on the faces of the two demons. If the power of the heavens and earth dissipated slightly, it would be easier for them to overcome the tribulations. As expected of the godly dragon space, the two beasts immediately attributed the rare occurrence to the godly dragon space. Upon seeing this, Qin Nan tried to inspect the mysterious golden seal with his left eye. For some reason, he was able to peek inside the seal. Love go little say inside the seal was a strange space. The entire space was covered in a golden glow, and at the center of the golden glow was a transparent white vat. The force of the heavens and earth that the golden seal had absorbed was flowing into the vat. Impressive, impressive, the force of the heavens and earth seems to have lost its consciousness after entering the golden seal. It is now obedient, leaving only the force of the heavens and earth. No wonder the Martial Serendipity Pavilion said that the golden seal could help me. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment. The force of the heavens and earth belonged to the heavens and earth, thus it had its own consciousness. For example, Qin Nan had once mocked the heavens and earth when he felt that the force of the tribulation was too weak, causing the force of the heavens and earth to grow stronger. Therefore, most cultivators would not even dare to curse when they were overcoming their tribulations. As such, there was a famous saying, "God is always watching from three sides." However, it was a good thing for Qin Nan, as he had surpassed the rules of cultivation. If the force of the heavens and earth still possessed its consciousness, it would most likely attract the attention of the heavens, resulting in the descent of the 9 heavens' godly thunder. I wonder how much force of the heavens and earth this golden seal can store? Qin Nan was startled when he saw the golden seal stopping absorbing the force of the heavens and earth. He waved his hand and inserted the force of the martial ancestor into the golden seal, allowing it to unleash its maximum potential. Bang! 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 At that instant, a shocking mysterious force burst out from the golden seal, which was many times stronger than before. It grabbed at the two tribulations and absorbed the force of the heavens and earth into the transparent vat. The force of the heavens and earth is still disappearing. This is great. When Leopard Chaotian and the other demonic disciple saw the energy of heaven and earth dissipating at an even faster rate, their faces lit up with excitement. They felt as if their bodies were filled with energy. With a loud roar, they took the initiative to charge toward the tribulation lightning. Nice. Finally, they would not be suppressed by this bullshit tribulation anymore. Qin Nan's attention was fully focused on the golden seal, thus he did not notice the two beasts. Time gradually passed. After a period of over 10 breaths, the excitement on the faces of the leopard-striped Chaotian and the other disciple slowly froze, as the force of the heavens and earth was still disappearing from their tribulations. It seemed like it would not stop any time soon, as if it had confirmed their thoughts. The force of the heavens and earth continued to disappear. The initially enormous stormy cloud was now less than half of its previous size. How could this be? F***K. Leopard striped skyward and the other demonic beasts' faces changed greatly in an instant. Their faces became extremely colorful. They had never seen or heard of anything like this before. If the force of the heavens and earth were to disappear just like that, how were they going to overcome their tribulations? Even their tribulations were gone. This mysterious golden seal is indeed powerful. The tribulations of the two beasts combined are not even 1/100th of its capacity. Qin Nan's face was filled with joy after observing the situation for a while. However, he subconsciously raised his head after hearing a few roars, and was shocked after taking a glimpse. He had been too focused on the tribulations, thus he had completely forgotten about the two beasts. The two beasts were utterly dumbfounded, as their tribulations were only 1/20th of their previous size. They raised their heads and only saw the stormy cloud with a circumference of 1 li. Even the lightning strikes were as thin as a strand of hair, completely lacking in power. Return it. Qin Nan made up his mind. The mysterious force of the mysterious golden seal dissipated instantly, as the force of the heavens and earth was emitted from the cauldron and rapidly entered the tribulations. All of a sudden, the thundercloud, which was only half a kilometer in radius, expanded rapidly like a raging sea. The two beasts were startled. It seemed like the tribulation was expanding again. Following this, their expressions changed tremendously, as they almost burst into tears. What the F***K was going on? Why had the tribulation returned to its original size, and it was even bigger than before? Chapter 859. Geniuses Remember Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 862, A Letter from the Third Prince, Qin Nan was slightly embarrassed when he saw the changes in the two beasts' expressions. He immediately withdrew the golden seal and left the godly dragon space, returning to the human peak. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website, please leave a good review. That was quick. The golden seal is indeed powerful. It can even deal a heavy blow to someone at times. Qin Nan murmured. Just think about it, if a cultivator had all their force of the heavens and earth absorbed when they were in the middle of a tribulation, it would be a great blow to them. Of course, some powerful geniuses would have experts protecting them when they were advancing. It would be very difficult to launch a sneak attack on them. It would depend on the specific situation. However, Mu Mu, Bai Weiyang, and the others have all become martial ancestor. It would take them a long time to collect the force of the heavens and earth from the Dragon Emperor Court. Qin Nan frowned as he pondered. Apart from the Dragon Emperor Court, the other 2-starred factions and 3-starred factions also have similar godly dragon spaces, but there are only a few disciples who have yet to rank up to the martial ancestor realm. Upon having this thought, Qin Nan shook his head. There was no way he could collect the force of the heavens and earth within a short period of time. Even if he could find someone to rank up to the martial ancestor realm in the Middle Continent, the amount of force he could absorb would be extremely limited. That's fine too. I've yet to overcome the tribulation, but I can still improve my cultivation. Love go little Saig Ku. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with excitement. Since he could not find it now, he would just have to wait a little longer. When the Monarch Horoscope contest took place, countless cultivators would participate in it. The one who obtained the Martial Monarch Fate Horoscope would rank up to the Martial Monarch realm, thus it would not be too late for him to absorb the force of the heavens and earth. Reading in full, let's continue cultivating. Qin Nan collected his thoughts, before his figure disappeared into the Tao Origin crystal at the peak of the mountain. This time, he did not continue to absorb the energy, but began to comprehend the monarch arts instead. The reason being that in order for the martial ancestors tree to unleash its full power, apart from his own strength, he also needed to fully comprehend the essence of the monarch arts. Qin Nan had mastered more than 100 monarch arts, and he had only mastered half of them. Days passed. In the next 5 days, a shocking roar came from the human peak. It was Xian Yu who had successfully broken through to the next level, giving birth to the martial seed. Then, she quickly went to the godly dragon space and successfully broke through to the first tier of the martial ancestor realm. If it were in the past, Qin Nan might have taken action and absorbed more than half of Xian Yu's lightning tribulation. However, Xian Yu was now his trainee mount. In addition to that, the 2 hounds and 1 mouse were nourished by the Tao Origin Qi, causing their fur to have a deeper hue and a mystical aura to appear. At dawn on the 6th day, Qin Nan's eyes sprang open all of a sudden. Bang! Powerful auras burst out from his body as the monarch arts appeared one after another on his body, each containing a powerful force. In the past 5 days, He had fully comprehended the essence of all the monarch arts. In a battle, not only could Qin Nan control the 6 martial ancestor trees at will, he could also control the monarch arts of the martial ancestor trees to unleash their full potential, allowing him to switch between them at will. Very good. Now, my battle prowess has reached its true peak. Xian Yu has just ranked up to the first layer martial ancestor realm. I can use her to test the power of the martial ancestor trees. Qin Nan exhaled deeply as his eyes flickered. Although he could not use the 6 martial ancestor trees for no reason, he would not have any problem using one of them. Since he had ranked up to the martial ancestor realm, he had yet to use his strength. However, at that instant, following a buzz, a badge suddenly emitted a glow. Sky-scorching badge? Qin Nan glimpsed at the storage bag and his eyes flickered with astonishment. The badge was given to him by the Sky-Scorching Emperor. With the badge, he would be able to mobilize the power of the Sky-Scorching Ancient Kingdom to assist him. However, why was the Sky-Scorching Emperor looking for him now? Did something happen to the Sky-Scorching Ancient Kingdom? With a hint of doubt, Qin Nan picked up the badge and inspected it with his divine sense. Qin Nan, it's been a while. I didn't expect so many things to have happened while I was asleep. Haha, I should congratulate you now. However, I won't exchange pleasantries with you. A month ago, I came out of seclusion in advance and joined the Wuliang Mountain. A familiar voice could be heard. The Wuliang Mountain has discovered a fortunate encounter which might be able to alter your destiny. However, another faction has invited the help of the Heaven Saber sect, who are 2 inner disciples ranked 1721st and 1305th on the monarch ranking. Their strength is equivalent to the 3rd layer martial ancestor realm. If it's possible, I hope you can pay a visit to the Wuliang Mountain. Qin Nan was startled hearing this, before his face was filled with joy. Wasn't the voice the 3rd prince? He had come out of seclusion in advance? And he had joined the Wuliang Mountain? Qin Nan soon calmed his thoughts. The message from the 3rd prince was quite obvious. If Qin Nan was strong enough, he would need Qin Nan to help the Wuliang Mountain, or himself. 2 inner disciples of the Heaven Saber sect who are ranked over 1,000? That's great. Qin Nan's lips curled upward as he rose from the ground. How could he not go when the 3rd prince was asking for his help? Besides, the 3rd prince had come out of seclusion a month ago without informing him. If it weren't for the incident at the Wuliang Mountain, he would have been kept in the dark. Did the 3rd prince really think that he would turn his back on him after Qin Nan became stronger? He had to settle the score with the 3rd prince. Xian Yu. Qin Nan stepped out from the Tao Origin crystal and uttered a roar. Roar. At the human peak, Xian Yu's enormous figure rose into the air and uttered a deafening roar into the sky. His bloodshot eyes glanced at Qin Nan with a hint of displeasure. This asshole. Couldn't he just transmit his voice through his divine sense? Why did he have to yell it out loud? Let's head to the middle sector city. Qin Nan's figure landed on Xian Yu's head with a flicker and said, F***K me. Brother Qin Nan, Master Qin Nan, where are you going? Why didn't you bring us along? At that instant, Yellow and Blackie were startled. They immediately halted their cultivation and ran toward Qin Nan with glistening eyes. They knew that something good would happen if they stayed by Qin Nan's side. The heavenly fortune mouse was the quickest. It landed on Qin Nan's shoulder in the blink of an eye and sat down with a pleasant expression. Whoosh! Xian Yu glanced at the 2 dogs and a hint of mockery flashed through her eyes. With a flash, she turned into a streak of silver light and flew off into the horizon, leaving the 2 dogs in the dust. Xian Yu, you filthy wolf, I'm sorry. Chapter 860. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Here's an interesting novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 863 Disciples of the Heaven Saber Sect. Middle Continent, Wuliang Mountain. Quick update, the website is refreshing with few advertisements. I love this kind of website, please leave a good review. For more information, please visit www. After the incident last time, the overall strength of Wuliang Mountain had plummeted, and its ranking among the 3-star forces had also dropped a lot. If Lin Miaoke had not realized what had happened last time and acted decisively and bravely, Wuliang Mountain would have been at the bottom of the 3-star forces. Meanwhile, on the dojo of the Wuliang Mountain, Lin Miaoke stood at the front, followed by the third prince and a few other peak martial sacred realm experts. Opposite them stood 2 old men in black and gold robes. Their auras were extremely sharp and filled with demonic auras. The 2 old men were from the 3-starred faction, the demonic flame sect, whose cultivations were the 2nd layer and 3rd layer martial ancestor respectively. If it was just the 2 of them, Lin Miaoke wouldn't be afraid. The key was the 2 young men behind the 2 old men. The 2 young men were wearing a white robe and a golden robe respectively, each carrying an ancient saber on their back. Their cultivations were the 3rd layer martial ancestor, and they did not conceal it at all. Their gazes toward Lin Miaoke and the others were filled with an innate pride. They were the 2 geniuses from the demonic flame sect, who were now inner disciples of the Heaven Saber sect. Their names were Yang Song and Xia Hao. Lin Miaoke, what are you planning to do? We're all here, it's time for us to depart. Ding Buhui, the sect leader of the demonic flame sect, said in a cold tone. Love go little say, Lin Miaoke wore a cold grin hearing this. A while ago, the 3rd prince went to the Cloud Mountain range to train and encountered a skeleton. Unexpectedly, there was a strange map on the mysterious skeleton. At that time, the elder of the demonic flame sect appeared and fought with the 3rd prince, wanting to snatch the map. In the end, the 2 of them couldn't do anything to each other. In order to avoid attracting others, they could only tear the map in half. Later on, after careful research, they discovered that this map was definitely not simple. It was very likely that it contained a heaven-defying opportunity to change one's fate. Therefore, the Immeasurable Mountain and the Mental Flame Demon sect agreed to send experts to the location of the map together. But how could Lin Miaoke go out now? If they went out like this, when the time came and there were really treasures, their Wuliang Mountain would definitely not be able to get anything. Therefore, they could only wait for Qin Nan to come over. Lin Miaoke glanced at the 3rd prince and said with a calm smile, Sect leader Ding, why are you so impatient? Since your mental flame demon sect has found 2 young geniuses to participate in the trial, it goes without saying that someone from our Wuliang Mountain will be coming too. Therefore, we're waiting for him here at the dojo. Ding Buhui and the others were startled. They had investigated the Wuliang Mountain, but they did not manage to nurture any powerful geniuses. Who were they waiting for? Oh! At that instant, Yang Song from the Heaven Saber sect raised his eyebrows and said, Sect leader Lin said that we're waiting for someone from the Wuliang Mountain. Who's that person? To have the 2 of us and a few others wait for him, this person's reputation is not small. Yang Song's and Xia Hao's expressions turned indifferent. There seemed to be saber-intense flickering in all directions. It was within their expectations that the Wuliang Mountain was looking for someone, but they did not expect them to be asked to wait for him at the dojo. They were the inner disciples of the Heaven Saber sect, who were ranked in the top 1,000 on the monarch ranking. Lin Miaoke's expression changed slightly. These 2 disciples of the Heaven Saber sect were not easy to deal with, as they were able to find a loophole in her words with ease. She took a deep breath and said in a calm tone, It's my fault. Bring them to the sect leaders' hall of the Wuliang Mountain at once. The martial sacred realm experts behind her immediately responded. That won't be necessary. Yang Song placed his hands behind himself and glanced into the sky. I'm interested to see what kind of esteemed guest the Wuliang Mountain has invited to make the sect leader wait for him in person. At that time, it would be even better if I could exchange a few blows with this esteemed guest. Senior brother is right. I haven't drawn out my saber for the past 2 months. Xia Hao chimed in with a smile. The atmosphere of the place intensified. Lin Miaoka's expression changed slightly as she glanced at the third prince. Although the third prince wore a stern expression, he nodded his head in agreement. He was familiar with Qin Nan. If Qin Nan was here, it would not be a problem. Let's hope that guy can do it. Lin Miaoka let out a sigh as she recalled the figure from the past. She did admit that Qin Nan was strong, and his talent was not bad either. He would surely be able to join a 2-starred faction. However, she had no idea what Qin Nan's status was in a 2-starred faction. It would be best if he was able to bring a few inner disciples to lend a hand. As for Qin Nan's cultivation, she did not expect him to do so. After all, it had only been a short while. Even if Qin Nan possessed a 5th-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit, his cultivation would at most reach the 2nd-layer martial ancestor realm. Time gradually passed. After the period it took 5 incense sticks to burn, there was still no sign of any movement from the sky. Ding Buhui harumphed seeing this and said, Sect Leader Lin, it's been the period it took 5 incense sticks to burn. Why isn't the person you've invited here yet? Do you expect us to wait here for a whole day? Or perhaps, the person you've invited is too scared to show up? Ding Buhui's eyes flickered with a hint of disdain. He did not like Lin Miaoka's attitude, as she still did not understand the situation and obediently handed over the map under such circumstances. Wouldn't everything be fine if she were to submit to the demonic flame sect? Yang Song's and Xia Hao's faces turned cold as well. They were interested in witnessing the person's strength, but it was impossible for them to wait any longer. Lin Miaoka's expression changed as she glanced at the third prince. Sect leader, don't worry. Qin Nan has gone through life and death with me. Since he didn't say that he wouldn't show up, he will definitely show up. Besides, I've calculated that if any of the 2-starred factions were to arrive at the middle sector city, then the Wuliang Mountain, it would take them some time. Let's wait a little longer. The third prince wore a calm expression as he transmitted his voice. Lin Miaoka nodded slightly as her eyes flickered with admiration. Even though the third prince only possessed a 10th-grade D-ranked martial spirit, his personality was quite stable. As such, she had asked the Wuliang Mountain to focus on nurturing the third prince. Now that there was a fortunate encounter that could alter one's destiny, she would try her best to secure it for the third prince. Seeing that Lin Miaoka and the others were silent, Ding Buhui had no choice but to wait. Time gradually passed. The period it took 3 incense sticks to burn was gone in the blink of an eye. This time, instead of Ding Buhui, the disciple of the Heaven Saber sect, Yang Song, glared at Lin Miaoka with an icy murderous intent and said, Sect leader Lin, it's been the period it took 8 incense sticks to burn. Where is the person you're looking for? I'll wait for the period it took an incense stick to burn. If the person still doesn't show up, and your Wuliang Mountain still refuses to hand over the map, don't blame me for showing no mercy. Lin Miaoka and the martial sacred realm experts were startled. However, at that instant, bang! Chapter 861. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 864 Qin Nan's Arrival. On the dojo, Lin Miaoka, Ding Buhui, Yang Song, Xia Hao, the third prince, and the others raised their heads and glanced into the sky. Click here to read. That was fast. A black dot had appeared in the sky out of nowhere and was flying toward them at a rapid pace. The aura had arrived before the beast. Such a powerful aura, the bloodline of the beast alone is equivalent to a 3rd-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit or above. Could this be the person the Wuliang Mountain is waiting for? Yang Song and Xia Hao exchanged glances with one another. Such a beast was quite extraordinary even in the Dragon Emperor court. However, they were not weak either, as their martial spirits had also reached the 3rd grade Tian rank. Not long after, the black dot in the sky rapidly enlarged in front of everyone's eyes. Its towering and enormous appearance appeared in front of everyone's eyes. Skyhowl Wolf? Yang Song, Xia Hao, Lin Miaoka, and the others were stunned. The Skyhowl Wolf was ranked in the top 30 among the beasts in the Dragon Emperor court. Only Lin Miaoka and the 3rd prince collected their thoughts. Their eyes were filled with confusion. What was going on? Why was the Skyhowl Wolf here? Where was Qin Nan? Haha, sect leader Lin, so this is the helper you've hired? The tribe of the Skyhowl Wolf, with such a remarkable bloodline, he must be a disciple of the Dragon Emperor court, but Yang Song and Xia Hao wore disdainful grins as they collected their thoughts. Almost all the books you want to read are here. It's more stable than the other websites, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. So what if his bloodline is remarkable? So what if he's a disciple of the Dragon Emperor court? This Skyhowl Wolf only has a cultivation of the 1st layer martial ancestor. At that time, when they arrived at the Skycloud mountain range, what use would such a cultivation be? Ding Buhui and the other old man let out sighs of relief. It would not be good news if the other party had brought a strong lineup. Even as he spoke, Xian Yu suddenly sped up and landed on the dojo. A boom rang out and countless streams of Empyrean energy sprayed out in all directions. It was an awe-inspiring and domineering sight. Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others in the training hall remained unmoved. 3rd Prince, you're too kind. You came out of seclusion a month early and only sent me a message now. What do you mean by this? However, right at this moment, an indifferent voice was heard. Read. Hearing this, Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, Lin Miaoka, the 3rd Prince, and the others were stunned. Someone? What was going on? Where did this person come from? It was not their fault, as Qin Nan was able to conceal his cultivation after he discovered the unique aura he was emitting. Even someone with a cultivation below the 7th layer martial ancestor would have a hard time discovering his presence, let alone someone with a cultivation below the 7th layer martial ancestor. As such, they did not notice Qin Nan's presence at the start. In the midst of the confusion, Yang Song, Xia Hao, Lin Miaoka, the 3rd Prince, and the others immediately glanced toward the source of the voice. Following a glimpse, even Yang Song and Xia Hao wore astounded expressions on their faces. They could only see Qin Nan standing on Xian Yu's head. Beside him were 2 pitiful hounds and a joyful mouse. He didn't release any powerful aura. It was just plain and ordinary. However, to everyone present, it was like a sudden clap of thunder. As everyone knew, standing on the head of a beast meant that the beast had submitted itself to the person and become their mount. However, this was a Skyhowl Wolf. Furthermore, it was a Skyhowl Wolf with such an outstanding bloodline. How was this young man able to tame a Skyhowl Wolf? Then how terrifying was this young man? Qin Nan. The 3rd Prince was overjoyed when he saw Qin Nan, who went up to him. However, he shook his head with a wry smile as a sudden thought crossed his mind. It's not that I didn't want to look for you, but it's quite troublesome to stay in the middle continent. I was just about to contact you when this happened. Cut the crap, you must treat me to a good drink after this. Qin Nan burst out laughing and threw a punch at the 3rd Prince's chest. He was not a fan of drinking. However, if it was a brother that he had not seen for a long time, he would definitely drink with him. Not a problem. The 3rd Prince wore a grin on his face as he was lost in his thoughts. Even though things had changed after he came out from his seclusion, and this brother before him was no longer ordinary, their friendship had not changed at all. Alright, let's not talk about catching up for now. Let's get down to business. Qin Nan glanced at Lin Miaoka and said with a calm smile, Sect Leader Lin, we meet again. What's the matter this time? I hope you can explain it to me in detail. By the way, who are these? Qin Nan glanced at Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others. He had already used his eye technique on Xian Yu to observe their cultivations, martial arts, martial spirits, etc. He was familiar with their background too, but he was still clueless about their names. Lin Miaoka collected her thoughts after hearing this. She was greatly shocked by Qin Nan's arrival. She took a deep breath to calm her thoughts and said, "These two are Yang Song and Xia Hao, disciples ranked on the monarch ranking. This is Ding Buhui, the sect leader of the demonic flame sect. I'm Qin Nan, nice to meet you all. This is Xian Yu, my mount." Qin Nan nodded and brought his fists together. The two hounds were displeased when they saw Qin Nan did not introduce them. They were about to introduce themselves, but to their surprise, they let out barks as soon as they opened their mouth. Why did they drop the ball at such a crucial moment? Qin Nan? Are you the Qin Nan from the Dragon Emperor Court? Yang Song and Xia Hao were startled. They did not expect the person to be the famous Qin Nan. That being said, the main reason why they were able to meet Qin Nan was because of Cui Lishu. Previously, Qin Nan was only ranked over 2,000, while Cui Lishu was ranked 500. The benefits he received were not as great as Qin Nan's. "That's me." Qin Nan wore a calm expression as he communicated with the third prince with his divine sense. He was trying to learn the truth of the matter. The astonishment on Yang Song and Xia Hao's faces instantly vanished upon hearing this. On the other hand, Yang Song wore a grin as he said, "Haha, I was wondering who it was, but I didn't expect you to be Qin Nan. You're quite lucky in the trial of the monarch ranking. However, if I'm not mistaken, your martial spirit is only first-grade Tian ranked, and your ranking is only around 2,000, right? Besides, it hasn't been long since the monarch ranking trial ended, and your cultivation is at most the first-layer martial ancestor realm." Saying this, Yang Song hesitated for a moment before he squinted his eyes and said, "Cultivator Qin Nan, am I right?" Chapter 862. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 865, The Skycloud Mountain Range. Lin Miaoka, Ding Buhui, and the others were startled after hearing this. Almost every book you want to read is available. It's more stable than other websites, and the updates are faster too. It's all text with no advertisements. The updates are so fast. Obviously, they did not expect Qin Nan to only have such a martial skill, talent, and strength while riding the Skyhowl Wolf. As they collected their thoughts, the former's expression changed slightly, while the latter's expression became relaxed. Only the third prince's expression remained the same. Qin Nan calmly said, "As expected of a disciple of the Heaven Saber sect. You're right. My cultivation has only reached the first-layer martial ancestor realm." Qin Nan, Lin Miaoka was about to say something. "Sect leader, don't worry. If Qin Nan dares to come here, he must be confident. Is he here to get himself killed?" Before she could finish, the third prince smilingly said, "Back in the eastern continent, Qin Nan was the same as well. Although he seemed to be in a disadvantageous position, he still managed to turn the tables around in the end." Lin Miaoka was startled, but remained silent after coming to a realization. Yang Song was not surprised after hearing Qin Nan's admission. He gave Qin Nan and Xian Yu a thoughtful look, before his expression returned to normal. "Sect leader Lin, since everyone is here, you can take out the map. Let's head to the Skycloud Mountain Range. Firstly, friend Qin Nan and cultivator Xian Yu, please don't tell the Dragon Emperor Court about this. Secondly, before we find the treasure, we should work together to eliminate any danger. After all, the deeper regions of the Skycloud Mountain Range are extremely dangerous. However, once we find the treasure, we'll claim it with our own strength. How does that sound?" Yang Song had come up with the words after a serious consideration. Of course, he could make a move now and snatch the map. However, it would not be good if Qin Nan and Xian Yu alerted the people of the Dragon Emperor Court. He wasn't afraid of the elders of the Dragon Emperor Court. As a disciple of the Heaven Saber sect, he had someone protecting him. However, the trip to the Cloud Mountain Range this time was related to the opportunity to go against the heavens and change one's fate. Once the elders of the two major forces interfered, it would have nothing to do with them. They wanted to go against the heavens and change their fate, and so did the elders. However, Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others were not stupid. They naturally knew that since Qin Nan dared to come here, he must have some sort of trump card on him. At the very least, he would have no problem keeping himself alive. However, Qin Nan had a trump card, and so did they. At that time, they would see whose trump card was stronger. All right. Lin Miaoka nodded without hesitation. Everyone understood that the only way to maximize the benefits was to work together to find the treasure. Otherwise, no one would want to benefit from it. With a flick of her finger, a fragmented map appeared in front of her. Two become one. Ding Buhui waved his hand, causing the same fragmented map to float in the air, which slowly merged with Lin Miaoka's map and pieced them together perfectly. Buzz. At that instant, the map shuddered softly as it emitted a faint law-defying aura. No wonder they thought the map might contain some destiny-altering fortunate encounter. Qin Nan's eyes flickered with astonishment seeing this. Through the all-knowing scroll of the Middle Continent, he was aware that there were various kinds of maps in the Middle Continent. How could they determine if the maps contained destiny-altering fortunate encounters? That would depend on the aura of the map. Those that contained destiny-altering fortunate encounters would have a law-defying aura encapsulating the map. Of course, there was a difference between defying the heavens and changing one's fate. For example, changing from a yellow-class martial spirit to a Xian-class martial spirit was also defying the heavens and changing one's fate. However, to the people present it was completely useless. Only by upgrading one's destiny-altering to the 4th grade Tian ranked or above would it be considered a great fortunate encounter. However, for now, it was impossible to tell what kind of fortunate encounter it was through the map. They would only be able to find it out after experiencing the danger in person. As a result, there were many betting parties in the Middle Continent. Some people would sell destiny-altering maps, thus many cultivators would bet everything they had on it. Some would make a great fortune, while others would lose their lives trying to do so. It's deep inside the Skycloud mountain range, let's head over. Ding Buhui's eyes flickered as he took the lead and flew into the sky. Yang Song, Xia Hao, and another old man in a black robe swiftly followed behind. Let's go too. Lin Miaoka glanced at Qin Nan and took a deep breath, before she waved her hand and emitted a glow that encapsulated the third prince's figure. Damn it, these people are so snobbish, Xian Yu said in an unpleasant tone seeing this. It was his first time being treated like this as the young master of the Skyhowl tribe. However, as he was only a probationary mount, he was not allowed to do anything. Qin Nan was the one making the decision. That's enough, stop complaining and follow me. Qin Nan landed on Xian Yu's head and let out a calm smile. So what if they were looking down on him? He was indeed a first-layer martial ancestor, but his first-layer martial ancestor was different. The Skycloud mountain range was one of the 100 mountains of the Middle Continent, which was on par with the Crimson Magic Mountain Range that Qin Nan had visited before. Unlike the Crimson Magic Mountain Range, the Skycloud mountain range was covered in a kind of mist known as the 100 Barrier Mist. The mist was white in color and was not poisonous. However, regardless of how strong one's eye technique was, it was impossible to see past 100 meters of the mist. Therefore, when cultivators were traveling in the Skycloud mountain range, it felt like they were walking among the clouds, thus the name of the Skycloud mountain range. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A few piercing sounds could be heard as Ding Buhui, Yang Song, Xia Hao, the old man in a black robe, Lin Miaoka, Qin Nan, Xian Yu, the third prince, the two hounds, and one mouse arrived at the foot of the Skycloud mountain range. The 100-barrier mist of the Skycloud mountain range indeed lives up to its name. Even with my saber eyes, I can't see past 100 meters. Yang Song stood at the foot of the mountain and scanned his surroundings. The surroundings were covered in a white mist, preventing him from peeking into the distance. Even his divine sense was useless. "Haha, senior brother, I can't see through it either." Xia Hao burst out laughing, before his gaze landed onto Qin Nan's figure and said, "Friend Qin Nan, you're a human disciple that the Dragon Emperor Court has made an exception to recruit. Even though your martial spirit is not strong enough, I'm sure your capabilities are outstanding, right? Why don't you lead the way before we enter the Skycloud mountain range?" "That's a great idea. Let's witness friend Qin Nan's capabilities." Ding Buhui and the old man in a black robe spoke simultaneously. "Everyone, the Skycloud mountain range is filled with danger. Even with the fifth-layer martial ancestors' cultivation, he would not be able to protect himself deep inside the mountain range. Since we're here to search for the treasure, we should explore the place together. Is that right?" Lin Miaoka's face turned cold. Everyone knew that leading the way in the Skycloud mountain range was extremely dangerous. They were obviously trying to set a trap for Qin Nan. However, before she could finish speaking, a large hand patted her on the shoulder, stopping her from saying anything. "I'll lead the way then." Chapter 863. A Genius Will Remember Love in 1 Second Divided by Small? SageNet, providing you with interesting novels to read. C_T. Chapter 866. The Three Great Experts. Qin Nan, your Lin Miaoka turned around as her eyes were filled with astonishment. She did not expect Qin Nan to step forward this time. However, when she saw the look in Qin Nan's eyes, she fell silent and remained silent. A love go small say W Chu. For more information, visit www. Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others wore grins on their faces seeing this. This Qin Nan wasn't that impressive, forcing him to step forward obediently with just a few words. However, little did they know that the mysterious 100-barrier mist was completely useless against Qin Nan. He could see through it with a single glance with his left eye of the divine god of battle. "Let's go." Qin Nan was too lazy to say anything. It did not matter to him who was leading the way. However, did these two really think he was that easy to bully? "Let's see how I'm going to deal with them in the Skycloud mountain range." The crowd immediately followed Qin Nan's figure and entered the Skycloud mountain range. Time gradually passed. A while later, they had entered the inner region of the Skycloud mountain range. At that instant, the grin on Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others' faces were replaced with solemn expressions. Their gazes toward Qin Nan were no longer as calm as before. The reason being that they had not stumbled into a single beast along the way. If the beasts did not dare to approach the mountain range due to Xian Yu's presence, they did not encounter any danger at all. After all, the beasts were not the scariest things in the mountain range. The scariest things were the forbidding auras that were hidden in the dark, and the strange flowers and plants with terrifying powers. This also proved that Qin Nan's eye technique was able to see through the 100-barrier mist. Beasts are coming. 3 third-layer martial ancestor realm demonic beasts. At that instant, Qin Nan's footsteps halted all of a sudden as he uttered a groan while his figure tensed. "Spread out." Yang Song's expression turned grave. His saber intent instantly covered his entire body. Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others tensed up as their gazes turned incomparably sharp. Although the 3 third-layer martial progenitor realm beasts were not enough to pose a threat to them, if they were to cause a great disturbance in the Skycloud mountain range, not only would it attract the attention of the surrounding experts, it would also attract the attention of stronger beasts. Only Lin Miaoka and the third prince had strange looks on their faces. As expected, a few breaths later, Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others realized that something was not right, and immediately glanced at Qin Nan. Along the way, I saw that no one had anything to say, so I decided to make a joke. Qin Nan's lips curled into a faint smile. You! Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others held their breaths as their expressions turned ugly. Just kidding? He was just toying with them, alright? Friend Qin Nan, it's better if you don't make such a joke. After all, even the elders of the Dragon Emperor Court wouldn't be able to make it here in such a desolate place. Yang Song took a deep breath and said in a cold tone. His intention was clear. Xian Yu was displeased hearing this, causing her to let out a groan. Let's go. Qin Nan squinted his eyes as he shrugged and walked forward. He did hate being threatened, but now was not the time to display his strength. After all, Lin Miaoka was here, and it would not be good for her to see the 6 trees of the martial ancestor. The group continued to move forward. However, not long after, Qin Nan squinted his eyes again as he snapped in a stern tone, "There are indeed beasts coming this time. 2 4th-layer martial ancestor realm beasts." Hearing this, the expressions of Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others changed slightly. 2 4th-layer martial ancestor realm beasts. It was going to take them some effort. However, following this, when Yang Song and his crew saw the grin on Qin Nan's face, they immediately realized that they had been tricked by this Qin Nan again. Qin Nan, Yang Song and his crew's eyes were spitting flames as they unleashed their murderous intent. Guys, we haven't arrived yet. Are we going to kill one another here? Lin Miaoka, who was standing beside Qin Nan, calmly spoke. Her eyes flickered with a hint of joy. This is what you get for being so smug and forcing Qin Nan to show himself. I'm just toying with you, so what? You can't see through the 100-barrier mist. There's no need to be angry. It's fine to joke around among cultivators. That being said, I know what I'm doing. I won't do it again after a few times. Qin Nan said with a calm smile. 2 or 3 times. Yang Song and his crew held their breaths as green veins popped out on their foreheads. In other words, he was going to do it again, right? Very well, as expected of a disciple of the human peak. I've underestimated you before. Yang Song took a deep breath and his face turned cold. According to the map, they were not far from the location of the treasure. Why not let Qin Nan show off for a while? That being said, they did not dare to attack as Lin Miaoka was still around. Even if they were to team up, it would be extremely difficult to kill them. Once they failed to kill them, Lin Miaoka and her crew could easily spread the news, which would attract the attention of countless experts. Therefore, as long as they arrived at the treasure location, everything would be fine. Even if Lin Miaoka and her crew managed to escape and spread the news, they would still have enough time to retrieve the treasure. Let's go. Qin Nan let out a smile and continued forward. Within the period it took 2 incense sticks to burn, Qin Nan's speed slowed down significantly, and he did not make any noise. This allowed Yang Song and the others to let out sighs of relief. If Qin Nan kept on joking, they would definitely become enraged and attack him. Qin Nan's eyes widened all of a sudden. Someone's coming. And it's a peak expert of the martial ancestor clan. Everyone, withdraw your auras. Qin Nan's figure disappeared into the woods with a flicker as he withdrew his aura and yelled. Lin Miaoka's expression changed greatly as she immediately unleashed her attacks, encapsulating the third prince's figure while executing a series of monarch arts. It was as if the third prince had turned into a piece of rock without any sign of life. Hee, Qin Nan, are you trying to trick us again? Very well, sect leader Lin, you're going to play along with him this time. Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others uttered hollow laughs. Did Qin Nan think they were idiots? He had tricked them twice in a row. Why would they fall for it this time? Besides, even though the Skycloud mountain range was one of the forbidden areas, under normal circumstances, peak experts of the Martial Ancestor clan would not come here. Even 6th-layer Martial Ancestor clan cultivators were rarely seen here, let alone peak experts. Experts of that level would normally appear in places like the 10 forbidden areas, the 9 seas, and the 3 rivers. Bang! 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 At that instant a few shocking explosions took place. In the sky, 3 peak Martial Ancestor clan cultivators unleashed their auras without concealing their presence, which swept across the place like a ferocious storm, causing the beasts in the mountains to be startled, who uttered groans and fled for their lives. What's going on? The expressions of Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others changed drastically in an instant. A hint of shock appeared in their eyes. Peak Martial Ancestor clan cultivators. They really were the peak Martial Ancestor clan cultivators. And there were 3 of them. Chapter 864. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Here's a fascinating novel for you to read. C_T. Chapter 867. The burial ground of white bones. They immediately withdrew their auras, as if they had vanished into thin air. Full text -79 Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others, in particular, wore unpleasant looks on their faces. They did not expect Qin Nan to be telling the truth this time. If they were to be targeted by the 3 great experts because of their hesitation, they would surely vomit blood due to the Great Depression they would feel. Qin Nan raised his eyebrows when he saw the 3 figures flying across the sky. Among the 3 figures, one of them was an old man. His aura was extremely strange. At times, he would emit a demonic aura, giving off an eerie feeling. Beside the old man were 2 young men. They were wearing emperor armaments and had cold expressions on their faces. They were emitting a sense of pride that originated from their bones. Even Cui Lishu's pride was incomparable to theirs. 7th grade Tian ranked martial spirits? After taking a closer look, Qin Nan's eyes were filled with astonishment. These 2 young men possessed 7th grade Tian ranked martial spirits. In other words, they were geniuses from the 3 great factions of the half-god region, who were ranked on the god ranking. The 3 cultivators in the sky moved at an incredible speed, as if they were rays of light. However, the old man's figure came to a stop all of a sudden. Qin Nan immediately collected his thoughts after seeing this, and swiftly withdrew his left eye of the divine god of battle. Following this, the old man continued to fly forward. A few breaths later, the sky above Qin Nan's group returned to normal. Lin Miaoka and the others let out sighs of relief, their faces filled with lingering fear. If they had been targeted by the old man, they would not have lasted for more than 30 breaths' time. We were almost discovered. Although this old man's cultivation is much weaker than the 2 young men's, the methods he possesses are unfathomable. Qin Nan let out a sigh, before his eyes flickered with excitement. 2 geniuses of the half-god region, and a peak martial ancestor. There was only one explanation for such a powerful lineup to come to the peak of the Skycloud mountain. There must be some incredible fortunate encounter here. Qin Nan. Yang Song was the first to lose his temper as he snapped. What are you trying to do? Don't you know you almost got us all killed? You're facing 3 martial ancestors. If you're not happy about it, you can easily kill us all. Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others were enraged. Yang Song, what you're saying is too excessive. Did I not warn you all earlier? Qin Nan's expression remained the same as he said coldly. Yang Song opened his mouth, but couldn't say a word. That's right. Qin Nan had indeed warned them. However, they assumed that Qin Nan was just toying with them. Stop arguing. Now that 3 peak martial ancestor experts have shown up, we should hurry to the place marked on the map. Otherwise, we'll be in great trouble if we stumble into them again. Lin Miaoka said. Yang Song and the others were furious. However, on second thought, Lin Miaoka's words did make sense. After all, they were looking for a fortunate encounter that could alter their destinies. If the fortunate encounter was powerful enough, it would surely attract these people here. Qin Nan nodded and led the way, leading the group forward at a rapid pace. For the rest of the journey, Qin Nan did not toy with the trio. Instead, he fully unleashed the power of his left eye to avoid all the dangers. In other words, they were extremely unlucky. If it weren't for his left eye of the divine god of battle, they would have been stopped by the beasts and cultivators. There might even be casualties. We're almost there. Qin Nan halted in his tracks and said. Lin Miaoka, Yang Song, and the others gathered their focus. For some reason, the woods ahead became gloomy all of a sudden, accompanied by a murderous aura. With his sharp senses, Qin Nan discovered that there was not a single beast within 10 miles of the place. It was completely different from the previous place. Woof! Woof! The two heavenly fortune hounds that had been silent suddenly barked. After barking, they were on the verge of despair. What was going on? Why were they still barking when they opened their mouths? The heavenly fortune mouse that was lying lazily on Qin Nan's shoulder sat up with a thoughtful look. It seems like something's happening. Qin Nan nodded his head slightly. The heavenly fortune hounds and the heavenly fortune mouse were extremely strange. No matter how hard they tried to cultivate, they could not improve their cultivation, as if they were completely useless. However, that was not the case. Most of the time, the two hounds and one mouse were able to predict the future. Lin Miaoka, Yang Song, and the others remained silent as if they were aware of something. They stared at the white mist ahead. Is that, after venturing a few dozen li further, Qin Nan's figure suddenly stiffened. What's going on? The hearts of Yang Song and the others shuddered. As they were unable to see clearly, they immediately executed their monarch arts to protect themselves as they proceeded forward. After taking a few hundred steps, they finally saw the thing in front of them, causing their figures to stiffen in place. Ahead of them was a small path overgrown with weeds. Scattered on the path were bones. As the path meandered downward, more and more bones appeared on the path. Eventually, they arrived at a valley filled with white bones. Meanwhile, deeper inside the Skycloud mountain range. Bang! The overwhelming auras of the old man and the two young men suddenly came to a stop and floated in the air. Just ahead, one of the young men calmly spoke. You better not lie to us. You should know the consequences of doing so. The other young man's attitude was even colder, with an innate imperious aura. Hee, of course it's just ahead. As for lying to you, I wouldn't dare to offend you even if I were given 10 gut. The old man's back seemed to bend, and his laughter was extremely strange. Suddenly, his eyes flashed, and he said, Two little brothers, in that place just now, there was a young man who seemed to have an extremely powerful eye technique. This old man felt like he could see through me. Should we, just a bunch of geniuses of the middle continent. The strongest among them is only the 4th layer martial ancestor. Not worth mentioning. The two young men shook their heads without showing any change in their expressions. If that's the case, then let's go down. The place in front can be said to be a forbidden area in the mountains. With our little bit of cultivation, we can't mess around. The old man lowered his head, as if he didn't have the slightest bit of temper in front of the two young men. P.S. The 3rd update will be delivered earlier tomorrow. Chapter 865. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 868 The Crimson Vulture. Meanwhile, in front of the Land of Bones. Click here to read. That was fast. The land of bones is no longer filled with the 100 barrier mist, and the bones on the ground are quite strange. The treasure must be inside the door at the deepest part of the land of bones. Qin Nan's left eye emitted a purple glow as he observed the surroundings. Although the scene before his eyes was frightening, it was actually not too dangerous. Everyone, since we're here, let's head in. We'll do as we've said before. Once we find the fortunate encounter, we'll rely on our own abilities. Yang Song collected his thoughts and glanced at Qin Nan calmly, before speaking in a calm tone. Without the 100 barrier mist, there was no need for him to treat Qin Nan seriously. However, it was not the right time for him to make his move, as no one knew what the land of bones was like. He might even need Lin Miaoka's help when the time came. Sure. Lin Miaoka nodded her head. This time, she took the initiative to lead the way, following Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the others toward the land of bones. The winding path was not dangerous at the beginning, as a squeak could be heard when they stepped on the bones. However, the crowd wore stern expressions as the force of the martial ancestor flowed continuously in their bodies. Sect Leader Lin, the land of bones in the valley is filled with danger. Don't be the first one to step forward. You can easily force them out with a monarch art. Qin Nan transmitted his voice to Lin Miaoka seeing this. Lin Miaoka's eyes flickered with astonishment after hearing this. What kind of eye technique did Qin Nan possess, to be able to see through the land of bones? A few breaths later, the crowd arrived at the entrance of the valley and came to a stop at that instant. It was obvious that everyone was aware of the dangers lurking in the valley. Open. Lin Miaoka did not bother to look at Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others. She flicked her finger and fired a magical glow into the valley. In the next breath, a buzzing sound could be heard as a shocking sight took place. The skeletons lying on the ground began to gather together, forming skeletal figures. Green flames flickered in their empty eye sockets as they glanced at Lin Miaoka, Yang Song, and the others while emitting shocking murderous intents. The auras of these skeletons were not weak at all, at least equivalent to the first-layer martial ancestor. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred skeletons of this level in the valley. Sect Leader Lin, you're really something. You've actually seen through the secrets of this valley. If I'm not wrong, the land of opportunity is definitely behind this mountain valley. Let's join forces now and kill our way over. What do you think? Yang Song and the others recovered their wits and laughed loudly. As he thought, Lin Miaoka and the others were still useful after all. Sure. Lin Miaoka's expression remained the same, but she glimpsed at Qin Nan with the corner of her eyes. Once we're done killing these skeletons, Qin Nan, what tricks do you have up your sleeves? Bang! 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 At that instant, several tremendous auras burst out from the figures of Lin Miaoka, Yang Song, and the others. Although Yang Song, Xia Hao, Ding Buhui, and the black-robed elder only possessed a cultivation of the third-layer martial ancestor, the former two were the inner disciples of the Heaven Saber sect, thus their saber intents were incredibly powerful and sharp, which was on par with Lin Miaoka's fourth-layer martial ancestor cultivation. Kill! Yang Song uttered a roar as he charged forward with the illusionary saber in his hand. He executed his monarch arts and executed a shocking saber art at lightning speed, shattering the skeletons one after another. Xia Hao's saber art was similar to Yang Song's, which was both swift and imperious. However, it lacked an indomitable aura, instead it felt more smooth. Lin Miaoka, Ding Buhui, and the black-robed elder made their moves too. The entire mountain valley was instantly filled with a series of explosions, resulting in a great commotion. Not bad at all in terms of battle. Qin Nan glanced at Yang Song and Xia Hao, before glancing at Xian Yu who had an eager look on her face and smilingly said, "Let's go and kill some of them too." Roar. Xian Yu uttered a roar as her figure turned into a beam of silver light and dove into the tide of skeletons. Qin Nan took a stroll in the garden while unleashing the power of a martial ancestor tree to attack the skeletons. As for the third prince, he followed behind Qin Nan and executed a secret technique to protect himself. Yang Song and Xia Hao wore cold expressions when they saw Qin Nan joining the battle. Their eyes flickered. They were not fond of this Qin Nan, thus they would definitely find a chance to teach him a lesson. Time passed by slowly. The group of cultivators worked together like a terrifying army advancing forward. In just the period it took 3 incense sticks to burn, half of the skeletons were eliminated. Of course, at this time, their speed began to slow down. After all, these skeletons each possessed a cultivation of the first layer martial ancestor tree, thus it would take some effort to destroy them. Besides, they would not use their full strength, as they had to preserve their strength. Look, there's a giant door over there. Ding Buhui, who was fighting against the skeletons, suddenly yelled as he discovered something. The crowd immediately glanced in the same direction and saw a giant pitch-black door in a secluded place deep inside the valley. The door was half closed, revealing wisps of black light, resulting in a mystical sight. That must be the place of fortunate encounters. Lin Miaoke, Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others were startled. As for Qin Nan, he had already discovered the existence of the door, thus his expression remained calm. At that instant, the eyes of Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others turned cold while emitting a murderous intent. Since they had found the place of fortunate encounters and eliminated half of the skeletons, there was no need to keep Lin Miaoke, Qin Nan, and the others alive. Qin Nan. Lin Miaoke was aware of their thoughts. She turned around and glanced at Qin Nan, but before she could say anything, a rare occurrence took place. Ha! A burst of laughter could be heard all of a sudden. Aren't you sect leader Lin of the Wuliang Mountain and sect leader Ding of the Demon Flame Demon sect? Everyone was really fated to come to this place. TSK, may I ask, what are you guys planning to do by coming all the way here? Hearing this, the murderous intent in the eyes of Yang Song, Xia Hao, and the others disappeared as their eyes widened. What was going on? Chapter 866. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second Divided by Little? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 869. The two sides enter the door. Everyone turned their heads and saw 8 cultivators in the distance. They were wearing blood-red robes with a ferocious-looking vulture embroidered on their chests. The eyes under the robes flickered with a faint blood-red light, giving off a vicious aura. For more information, visit www. 7 of them possessed a cultivation of the second-layer martial ancestor realm, while the middle-aged man leading the group possessed a cultivation of the third-layer martial ancestor realm. Crimson Vulture? Why are you here? Lin Miaoke and Ding Buhui were startled. The Scarlet Vulture was an organization of rogue cultivators. Their members often roamed the various mountain ranges, specializing in sneak attacks and robbing. They were full of evil. There was once an expert with a cultivation of the 5th-layer martial ancestor realm who was extremely dissatisfied with the Crimson Vulture's actions. He chased after the Crimson Vulture with his sword for 30,000 li, but his efforts were in vain, allowing the Crimson Vulture to escape from the calamity. As a result, the Crimson Vulture's reputation grew rapidly. Isn't this a coincidence? We happened to be bored, so we decided to roam the Skycloud mountain range and stumble into you guys here. Isn't that a coincidence? The middle-aged man leading the group wore a grin as he glanced at Yang Song, Xia Hao, and Qin Nan and said in a surprised tone, I don't think I've seen you guys before? The Crimson Vulture, right? I don't care who you are, I'm an inner disciple of the Heaven Saber sect, ranked over 1,700 on the Monarch ranking, Yang Song. This is my junior brother. He's an inner disciple of the Dragon Emperor Court. You better know your place and back off at once. Yang Song stepped forward and glanced down with a cold expression, as if these people were nothing in his eyes. Ha! However, the 8 cultivators of the Crimson Vulture burst out laughing at the same time, with a hint of disdain. What are you laughing at? Yang Song's expression darkened. I'm laughing at your stupidity. The smile on the middle-aged man's face vanished, replaced by a ferocious expression. An inner disciple of the Heaven Saber sect, right? An inner disciple of the Dragon Emperor court? Even if you're a genius on the god roll, as long as your cultivation is not high enough, don't even think about boasting in front of me. Brothers, since they've gathered here, there must be a great treasure here. Let's attack together. Boom! The 8 cultivators of the Crimson Vulture immediately made their move. A shocking bloody aura burst out from each of their bodies, as if they had transformed into Shuras from hell, charging in Lin Miaoka, Ding Buhui, and the others' direction. You guys! Yang Song's body stiffened. Never had he imagined that with their identities, they were actually unable to suppress even these few fellows. Furthermore, the cultivation of these 8 people was so much weaker than theirs. Where did they get the confidence to attack? Little did Yang Song know, the 8 cultivators of the Crimson Vulture had roamed the mountain ranges and experienced countless battles. They only believed in strength, and would not care how formidable their opponents' backgrounds were. Besides, the middle-aged man of the Crimson Vulture was extremely cunning. Now that the treasure was within reach, even though these 2 groups of people were powerful, they were not on the same page. He could easily provoke them with a little trick. Sect Leader Ding, Sect Leader Lin, their strength is only SOSO. Why don't you 2 team up and fend them off, while Xia Hao and I will enter the door and retrieve the treasure? What do you think? When we come out, we'll split the loot evenly. As expected of a disciple of the Heaven Saber sect, Yang Song's eyes flickered as he immediately came up with a plan after learning the situation. Not a problem. Ding Buhui and the black-robed elder's eyes flickered as they nodded. Let you 2 go first? Stop. Lin Miaoka became furious. This Yang Song and Xia Hao's plan was brilliant. If they were allowed to enter the door, who would they send instead? Would they send Qin Nan and the Skyhowl Wolf? They were only first-layer martial ancestor. Even if they had some tricks up their sleeves, how were they going to compete with Yang Song and Xia Hao for the treasure? As for splitting the loot evenly, that would be ridiculous. However, before she could finish her sentence, Qin Nan transmitted his voice to her. Sect Leader Lin, that's not a problem. Let me go. We'll be able to claim the treasure and the succession. You're going? Lin Miaoka was stunned. Was Qin Nan joking? Their opponents were 2 third-layer martial ancestor with unfathomable strength. Trust me. Qin Nan stared into her eyes and continued to transmit his voice. Then, all right. Lin Miaoka's heart shuddered. For some reason, she could not reject his gaze. Besides, she had thought about it carefully. Regardless of teaming up against the Crimson Vulture or splitting up, they would be at a disadvantage. The reason being that they were too weak. The only way was to let Qin Nan try. Hee, Sect Leader Lin is a wise man indeed. Seeing Lin Miaoka nodding her head, Yang Song and Xia Hao's eyes flickered as they glanced at Qin Nan. With a kick, their figures transformed into 2 rays of light that weaved through the corpses at lightning speed. Xian Yu, protect the 3rd prince. Qin Nan uttered a groan as his figure followed the 2. Seeing this, Lin Miaoka, Xian Yu, Ding Buhui, and even the 8 cultivators of the Crimson Vulture were stunned, as their faces were filled with astonishment. Qin Nan was going alone? A first-layer martial ancestor was planning to face 2 third-layer martial ancestor cultivators? Lin Miaoka, in particular, initially thought that Qin Nan was going to bring the Skyhowl Wolf with him. She did not expect it to end like this. Humph, he's asking for it. Ding Buhui and the black-robed elder regained their senses, and a disdainful sneer appeared on the corners of their mouths. This Qin Nan, did he really think he could challenge Yang Song and Xia Hao just because he had some tricks up his sleeve? Qin Nan was still too naive. Ha ha ha, interesting, very interesting. Brothers, they are trying to stop us so that someone else can claim the treasure. Let's hurry up and kill them. The middle-aged man in the blood-red vulture let out a hearty laugh. His eyes suddenly shone with a shocking blood-red light. His aura was actually much more powerful than it was before. The other 7 cultivators reacted the same way too. Screw it. Lin Miaoka clenched her teeth. With the crimson vulture in front of her and the corpses behind her, even with her cultivation of the 4th-layer martial progenitor realm, she would most likely die if she was not careful during the battle. Besides, Ding Buhui and the black-robed elder were only her temporary allies. Xian Yu uttered a groan. She could not understand where Qin Nan got his confidence from. That being said, she could not help but pray for Qin Nan in her heart. After all, she had been his mount for such a long time. If Qin Nan were to die, where would she find her vital qi? The 2 hounds and 1 mouse were not worried at all, as if they were unaware of the danger they were in. Instead, they weaved among the corpses and searched for some treasure. The 3rd prince, on the other hand, clenched his fists tightly. When he saw the sect leader facing all sorts of enemies by himself for the sake of his legacy, and when he saw his good brother stepping into the tiger's den by himself, a sense of powerlessness and anger rose in his heart. He was helpless because he never thought he would be so insignificant after altering his destiny. What made him angry was that he was too weak. He was like a burden that would only drag down the people around him. He was completely useless. A huge battle took place in the valley. Crimson glows of monarch arts swept across the sky, resulting in strong gusts of wind. The area within 10 li shook vigorously. Even though some beasts were awakened by the battle, they did not dare to come any closer. In the space of a few breaths, Yang Song and Xia Hao arrived at the entrance of the huge door. They were just about to push it open when they suddenly realized something. They turned to look, and their eyebrows shot up in astonishment. Chapter 867. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? We provide you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 870 Demonic Cultivation. Orbyang Song and Xia Hao did not expect Qin Nan to show up here. Almost every book you want to read is available. It's more stable than the other websites, and the updates are faster too. There are no advertisements. Access. Was this guy planning to enter the place with them? Wasn't that the same as committing suicide? I'll be going first. Qin Nan glanced at the 2 before pushing the door open and entering the place. This guy. Xia Hao stared at Qin Nan's back in disbelief, unable to collect his thoughts. How impressive of this Qin Nan, a mere 1st-layer martial ancestor dares to challenge us. Today, I want to see if his trump card is stronger, or if our methods are stronger. Let's go. Yang Song's expression darkened as he collected his thoughts. He knew Qin Nan dared to challenge them because he was confident enough to do so. However, he would not believe that 2 3rd-layer martial ancestor inner disciples, who were ranked above 1,000 on the monarch ranking, would lose to a mere Qin Nan. The 2 of them quickly stepped into the door. They could only see a small path inside the door, which was made of bones with dark red spots on it, as if it were made of dried blood. The path extended into the distance with no end in sight. This path of bones is filled with forbidding auras. It's not as simple as it seems. Yang Song wore a stern expression. His eyes flickered with a faint saber glow, which turned out to be his saber eyes. Senior brother, look, Xia Hao's voice was slightly weak. Yang Song raised his head and stared with his eyes open wide. He could only see Qin Nan's figure walking forward at a steady pace, as if he were taking a stroll in the afternoon. The path he took was perfectly clear of the forbidding auras. With his saber eyes, Yang Song was well aware of how powerful the forbidding auras were. If he were in Qin Nan's shoes, he would have to proceed cautiously too. Please read a book here, follow him. Yang Song took a deep breath and said while clenching his teeth. With his saber eyes, he was able to observe Qin Nan's path. The two followed closely behind him, but their speed was significantly slower than Qin Nan's. Is that? Qin Nan halted in his tracks and glanced forward. The end of the road suddenly opened up, and a palace that was more than 300 feet long appeared. The palace was pitch black, and on both sides of the palace, there were a few blue flames. Under the illumination of the flames, a dark red coffin was faintly discernible in the middle. It was like a ghost, and it was breathtaking. The aura in this ancient coffin is not weak. All the treasures are in here. Qin Nan's left eye emitted a purple glow as he took a step forward and grabbed the lid on the right side of the coffin with his left hand. With a pull, a creaking sound could be heard as the lid was lifted into the air. What's that? Yang Song and Xia Hao could not sit still after seeing this. They quickened their pace and approached the coffin. There was no corpse inside the coffin, but it was filled with blood mixed with a golden color. At the bottom of the blood was a box the size of a palm. At the center of the box was a round, white orb. A demonic aura was emitted from the white orb, resulting in an intimidating sight. It's the martial orb. According to the rumors, it's a unique orb formed by a demonic cultivator who had accumulated all his knowledge, his martial spirit, and his strength before his death. Once you've acquired the orb, you will be able to alter your destiny, allowing your cultivation to skyrocket and obtain the memories of the cultivator. Yang Song and Xia Hao were astounded. Such a martial orb was extremely rare even in the Middle Continent. Besides, judging from the aura of the martial orb in the Valley of Bones, the cultivator must have been a demonic cultivator whose cultivation had at least reached the peak of the martial progenitor realm. Even if the cultivator's martial spirit was only first-grade Tian ranked, which would not allow them to alter their destiny, the power and the memories of the martial arts contained within the orb would be extremely useful to them. Love go little say besides, what if the owner of the orb was a peerless genius who possessed a 5th-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit? Their gazes became fiery at once. The martial orb is mine. Yang Song let out a roar and dashed forward at lightning speed. However, he did not lose his mind completely, as he drew out the ancient saber on his back and slashed at Qin Nan. He then flipped his hand and stabbed the ancient saber into the pool of blood in the coffin. Buzz buzz buzz, at that instant a shocking sight took place. The blood that did not seem to have any special color suddenly unleashed a shocking corrosive ability, corroding the ancient saber layer by layer. In just a single breath's time, the tip of the saber was completely melted away. This, Yang Song was startled. His ancient saber was a half-monarch weapon, but it was still corroded by the blood with ease. It was a sign of how powerful the blood was. Senior brother, allow me. Xia Hao's eyes flickered as he executed a monarch art, which transformed into a giant hand engulfed in purple flames grabbing at the ancient coffin. He was planning to take the ancient coffin and the blood away. Bang! The ancient coffin remained still as the giant hand landed on it. Instead, it shattered the giant hand into pieces due to the recoil. This coffin seems to be a great treasure too. Qin Nan's eyes flickered slightly. The ancient coffin and the blood had been tampered with, thus his left eye of the divine god of battle was blocked by a force, which was why he did not make his move at the beginning. What's going on? At this moment, both Yang Song and Xia Hao's expressions changed. Even though they had not encountered any danger, what was the point of their journey if they could not even retrieve the treasure? They soon withheld the doubts in their hearts and clenched their teeth as they tried their best to retrieve the treasure. For example, the monarch arts could turn into palms and reach into the blood, or encapsulate defensive artifacts with monarch arts and sink them into the blood, or attack the blood directly to knock it away, etc. However, none of the methods were effective. The blood remained motionless, with a strong corrosive effect. "That's enough, stop wasting your time," Qin Nan calmly said after coming to a realization. "Shut up." Yang Song and Xia Hao had been holding in their anger for a long time, but they were unable to take the treasures away. They immediately exploded after hearing Qin Nan's words, especially Yang Song, whose eyes turned icy as he said, "Qin Nan, you've been toying with us since the beginning at the Skycloud mountain range. It's time for us to settle our debt." Before he could finish, Qin Nan reached out his left arm toward the blood in the coffin, without glancing at him. "What are you?" When Yang Song and Xia Hao saw this scene, their faces instantly froze. What was this guy trying to do? Grab the blood with his bare hand? Even the half-monarch weapon was unable to resist the corrosive effect, and he was trying to grab it with his bare hand? Was he trying to get himself killed? However, when Qin Nan's left arm entered the pool of blood, a strange sight took place. Although the sizzling sound of corrosion could be heard, his left arm was not damaged at all, as he easily grabbed the martial orb in his hand. This Yang Song and Xia Hao's eyes were filled with astonishment. Qin Nan had grabbed the martial orb? What was going on? "I've already acquired the martial orb, thus the succession is mine. You're all treasures with spirits, why aren't you following me?" Qin Nan straightened his face and uttered a roar toward the coffin and the blood. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The strange coffin began to vibrate vigorously as the blood inside the coffin shuddered, as if it was responding to Qin Nan. Very well. Qin Nan was overjoyed. He wasn't too interested in the skill bead because it was a great cultivator of the demonic path. It was completely incompatible with everything he had learned. And he didn't need to defy the heavens to change his fate, nor did he need any other skills. What he was more interested in was the ancient coffin and the blood water. Retrieve. Qin Nan grabbed the strange object with ease and stored it in his storage bag. Bang, bang, bang. At that instant the entire hall began to shake vigorously, as cracks began to appear on its surface. The ancient forbidding auras began to flicker, as if everything was about to be destroyed. The two geniuses who were immersed in astonishment collected their thoughts at that instant. "Ha ha ha. Qin Nan, thank you so much. I didn't expect you to take out the treasures. Not bad, not bad, not bad at all. My eyes have been opened today." Yang Song was overjoyed. He did not conceal the greed in his eyes as he said, "Now hand over all these treasures to me. Otherwise—" His voice came to a halt as a terrifying murderous intent was emitted. Chapter 868. A Genius Remembering Love in 1 Second? Shua.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. C_T. Chapter 871. The Tree of Martial Ancestor Unleashed. Meanwhile, in the valley. For more information, visit www. Lin Miaoka and the others were startled when they heard the loud noise coming from inside the door. Lin Miaoka and Xian Yu could feel their hearts hanging in their throats, while Ding Buhui and the others wore grins on their faces. "Humph, prepare to execute the secret technique." The middle-aged man of the Crimson Vulture transmitted his voice with a cold flicker in his eyes. Under the circumstances, even if it meant paying a great price, they would have to claim all the treasures. In the next moment, the 8 members of the Scarlet Vulture laughed sinisterly. They clasped their palms together and began to perform ancient hand seals. Their bodies began to shine brightly, and their auras began to rise rapidly. In the blink of an eye, their strength had doubled. This is Lin Miaoka, Ding Buhui, and the others held their breaths seeing this. These people had mastered such an evil technique. Meanwhile, in the hall inside the door. Even though Yang Song did not finish his sentence, his terrifying murderous intent had explained everything. If Qin Nan did not hand over the treasures today, he would surely kill Qin Nan right here and now. Hee hee. Qin Nan wore a mocking grin as he said, "You're getting impatient already? Didn't we agree that we'll do it with our own capabilities?" Ha ha ha, we're still relying on our own capabilities. Qin Nan, cut the bullshit. I'll give you one last chance. Are you going to hand over the treasures or not? Yang Song burst out laughing as his aura of the third-layer martial progenitor realm burst out in a menacing manner. Beside him, Xia Hao's bones began to crack as a strong gust of wind burst out from his body. "Not going to hand them over," Qin Nan said in a calm tone without hesitation. "Qin Nan, I gave you a chance, but you didn't take it. Now die. Xia Hao, let's attack together and use the martial ancestors tree to kill him." Yang Song's eyes widened as he uttered a roar. Above him, a 3-zhang tall, emerald-green martial ancestor tree sprang into the sky. The tree of martial ancestor also appeared above Xia Hao's head. These two were both undefeatable martial ancestor realm martial sacred realm cultivators, and had learned many monarch arts. Therefore, their martial ancestor trees were a lot stronger than ordinary martial ancestor trees with 3 layers. "Suppress him!" The two uttered a roar, causing the 2 ancient martial ancestor trees to unleash the will of monarch arts, which crushed down onto Qin Nan's figure like an ancient monarch mountain. "Finally, I can show my strength and have a good fight." Qin Nan's expression remained the same after seeing this. Instead, his eyes were filled with excitement. He had been waiting for this moment for too long. Trees of martial ancestor, come out. With a thought, Qin Nan summoned the weakest martial ancestor tree into the sky, which emitted a powerful aura and collided with the 2 martial ancestor trees, as if it were trying to support the heavens and earth. A love go little say kunum? Such a powerful tree of martial ancestor, but it's only a first-layer martial ancestor tree, and it's trying to resist our third-layer martial ancestor tree. Yang Song and Xia Hao's eyes flickered with astonishment, before a cold grin appeared on their faces. It was as if they could already imagine the scene of Qin Nan's tree of martial ancestor being destroyed by them. 1 tree supporting the heavens, 2 trees suppressing the earth, 3 trees shattering the heavens. Before they could finish, Qin Nan let out a roar. 2 trees of martial ancestor trees, emitting a strong will of the divine god of battle, floated in the air and lashed out at the 2 3-zhang tall martial ancestor trees with an unstoppable aura. Bang! A loud explosion took place. Under the influence of the 3 trees of martial ancestor, Yang Song and Xia Hao's trees of martial ancestor were halted in midair, unable to move any further. That being said, Qin Nan's 3 trees of martial ancestor were not ordinary at all. 2 of them were formed with the force of the divine god of battle, greatly surpassing the strength of ordinary martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor. When Yang Song and Xia Hao saw this scene, it was as if they were struck by lightning. They almost couldn't believe their eyes. 3 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor. Qin Nan had unleashed 3 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor. Furthermore, each of the martial ancestor trees was extremely terrifying. This didn't make any sense. Across the entire Middle Continent, countless cultivators, including Emperor Wu and martial god realm experts, only had 1 martial ancestor tree. What is it? Weren't you trying to kill me just then? Are you intimidated by these 3 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor? Qin Nan said in a cold tone after seeing their expressions. Yang Song and Xia Hao's figures shuddered violently as they collected their thoughts. Qin Nan, I didn't expect you to have 3 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor, and each one of them is so powerful. But what difference does it make? You're still only a first-layer martial ancestor. There's no way you can defeat us. Yang Song took a deep breath as his eyes flickered with greed as he uttered a roar. Junior brother, unleash your martial spirit and saber art and kill him. He must have some shocking secrets. Roger. Xia Hao's expression was exactly the same, with a hint of craziness in it. Everyone knew that Qin Nan had not done such a ridiculous thing that had gone beyond the rules of cultivation. Qin Nan must have some great secrets on him. If they were able to acquire them, and refine 3 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor, their future would be unimaginable. Besides, as Yang Song had mentioned, although the 3 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor were extremely powerful, they were still no match against them. Bang! Bang! 3 crimson rays were emitted from their backs as 2 unique martial spirits floated in the air, emitting a strong suppression that swept the entire place. Kill! The ancient sabers on their backs were drawn out from their sheaths as a terrifying saber art was executed. Together with their martial spirits, the power of the saber art was maximized, which felt like 2 ancient saber dragons colliding with Qin Nan's figure. The power of the attack was even more terrifying than the 2 martial ancestor trees of martial ancestor. Not bad, as expected of a 3rd-grade Tian-ranked martial spirit. If that's the case, I'll show you my full strength. Qin Nan's eyes flickered after seeing this. Without hesitation, he unleashed his divine scent. Bang! At that instant, the 4th martial ancestor tree sprang into the sky. What's going on? The figures of the 2 geniuses shuddered violently as they stared at the scene with blank faces. The 4th martial ancestor tree? Qin Nan had refined 4 of them? Bang! At that instant, another explosion took place, as the 5th and 6th martial ancestor trees floated in the air and stood firmly in the heavens and earth. Even without executing any moves, a terrifying aura lingered in the surroundings, causing the entire place to fall silent. 6 martial ancestor trees. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.